the dashboard of perception. Imagine, for a moment, that you're sitting in the passenger seat of a car on a quiet night. The world outside is dark, the road ahead illuminated only by the soft sweep of the headlights. Inside, the dashboard glows with a gentle, almost dreamlike light, soft blues, muted oranges, a slow-moving needle tracing the speed, a tiny icon warning of low fuel, a digital readout marking the temperature. You don't see the engine, not really. You don't feel the pistons firing, the oil circulating, the intricate dance of electricity through wires like silent rivers beneath the metal skin of the machine. You see only symbols, numbers, lights, a language of signs that tells you something about the state of the vehicle, but not the full story. And yet, with just this limited display, you can still understand enough to know whether you're moving, how fast, and if you'll make it to your destination. This dashboard is not the car. It is a representation of the car, a simplified interface, designed not for completeness, but for usability. Now, what if your entire experience of reality, the colors you see, the sounds you hear, the warmth of sunlight on your skin were like that dashboard? Not the world itself, but a translation of it, a user interface for a universe so vast, so complex, so fundamentally different from your perception that direct access would be overwhelming, perhaps even impossible. This is the idea we begin with tonight, that what we call reality is not the thing in itself, but a kind of inner display, a dashboard built by the mind to help us navigate a deeper hidden machinery that we never directly touch. Our senses are not windows to the world. They are filters, editors, translators. Light, in its raw form, is nothing more than electromagnetic radiation vibrating at certain frequencies. It has no color, no brightness, no meaning. Yet when it enters your eye, your brain converts it into the rich tapestry of sight, blue skies, golden sunsets, the deep green of a forest. Sound, too, is not inherent in the world. It is not floating in the air like mist. What exists are pressure waves, vibrations in the atmosphere. But your ears, your auditory cortex, transform those waves into music, speech, the rustle of leaves, the scent of rain on dry earth, the taste of salt on your lips. These are not properties of the molecules themselves, but interpretations made by your nervous system. The universe, in its essence, is silent, colorless, scentless. It is only when a living being encounters it that these qualities emerge like symbols lighting up on a screen. This is the dashboard of perception. It is not false. It is not an illusion. It is functional. It is designed not to show you the truth of things, but to show you what matters, what is useful for survival, for movement, for connection. You, Dan T., need to perceive the quantum field's underlying matter to know that a rock is solid. You don't need to understand the biochemistry of hunger to know that you're hungry. The dashboard gives you just enough. It tells you what you need to know, in a language you can understand, without overwhelming you with the full complexity of the system. And just like the car's dashboard, this inner display hides the machinery. You don't feel your neurons firing. You don't sense the electrochemical signals racing along your nerves. You don't experience the constant recalibration of your balance, your breathing, your immune system, all of it happening beneath the surface, like the engine's hum, unnoticed but essential. What you experience is the output, the feeling of walking, of seeing, of thinking. The dashboard shows you the results, not the processes. This idea is not new. Philosophers have long questioned the nature of perception. Kant spoke of the noumenon, the thing in itself, forever hidden behind the phenomenon, the world as it appears to us. Modern neuroscience supports this. The brain does not passively record reality. It actively constructs it. Every moment of your experience is a kind of controlled hallucination, shaped by sensory input, memory, expectation, and biological need. What you see is not a photograph of the world. It is a real-time simulation, rendered by the brain to help you act. But tonight, we go a step further. What if the machinery behind the dashboard is not made of matter at all? What if, instead of gears and wires, the engine is made of mind? This is the view known as analytic idealism, a philosophical framework that suggests reality is not fundamentally physical, but mental. Not in the sense that the world is all in your head, but in the sense that consciousness is the ground of all being. The universe is not a giant machine that somehow produces mind. It is a vast field of experience, what some call mind at large, within which all things arise, including our individual selves, our thoughts, and the world we perceive. In this view, The dashboard is not a screen in front of a physical brain. It is a representation generated by a deeper, universal mind. Our private awareness, our sense of being a self, is like a whirlpool in a great river of consciousness. Distinct, yes, temporary, certainly, but never truly separate from the flow. The dashboard is the way this whirlpool perceives the currents around it, not as raw mind stuff, but as objects, as space, as time. So when you look at a tree, you're not seeing the tree as it is in the deeper reality. You're seeing a symbol, a rendering, a useful icon on the dashboard that corresponds to a particular pattern in the flow of mind at large. The green leaves, the rough bark, the height, all of it is a translation. Just as the fuel gauge doesn't run out of gas, but merely reflects a condition in the engine. Your perception of the tree doesn't contain the tree, but points to a configuration in the underlying field of experience. This changes how we think about truth. We often assume that to know reality, we must strip away illusion, peel back layers until we find the objective facts. But what if the facts themselves are part of the dashboard? What if even science, the most precise of our tools, is not revealing the world as it is, but refining the symbols on the display, the equations of physics, the images from telescopes, the data from particle colliders? They are all part of the same interface, helping us make better predictions, build better models, navigate more effectively. But they may not take us closer to the engine. They may only give us a clearer view of the dials. And yet, this doesn't make reality meaningless. On the contrary, it makes it more mysterious, more intimate. The world you experience is not less real because it is a representation. It is real in the way a dream is real while you're dreaming it. The emotions, the colors, the sense of presence, all of it matters. The dashboard is not a lie. It is a bridge. It allows a deeper, impersonal mind to become aware of itself through you. Through every act of seeing, of touching, of thinking, you are the universe noticing a part of itself. There is a quiet beauty in this. You are not a tiny observer trapped in a vast, indifferent cosmos. You are a focal point where the infinite becomes finite, where the formless takes shape, where the silent hum of being becomes a story. You are not separate from the world. You are how the world sees itself. But this also means that the boundaries we draw, the separation between self and other, between inside and outside, between mind and matter, may be part of the dashboard too. Just as the car's dashboard divides information into separate gauges, our perception divides experience into objects, people, thoughts. But in the deeper flow, there may be no such divisions, only patterns in a single field, only currents in one ocean. So as we sit with this idea, let it settle. Let it drift through your awareness like a slow-moving cloud across the night sky. You don't need to hold it tightly. You don't need to understand it completely. Just let the question linger. What if everything you've ever known is a reflection, not the source? What if the colors, the sounds, the thoughts are all part of a great display, designed not to show you the truth, but to let you live within it? And if so, what lies beneath the dials? What is the nature of the river in which the dashboard floats? What kind of mind could give rise to such a world? Let us now look beyond the dashboard to the ocean from which all these signals arise. The ocean of mind. What if the universe isn't just like a mind, but is a mind? Not a mind in the way you and I are familiar with. No inner voice, no list of tasks, no memory of last Tuesday's coffee spill, but something far vaster, slower, and more fundamental. A single, continuous field of experience, stretching across galaxies and through time, in which all things arise and pass away, like ripples on an endless sea. In this view, you are not a separate observer looking out at the cosmos. You are a movement within it, a temporary gathering of awareness, a whirlpool in a current too vast to see from within. We are accustomed to thinking of minds as isolated. Yours is in your head, mine is in mine. We communicate through words, gestures, screens. But what if this separation is an illusion, a feature of the dashboard, not of the deeper reality? What if, beneath the surface of individuality, there is only one mind, not a cosmic dictator, not a God with thoughts and intentions, but a presence quiet, unbroken, and infinitely deep? A mind that doesn't think in the way we do, but simply is, like the ocean is, regardless of whether waves rise or fall. This idea, known in philosophy as analytic idealism or cosmic consciousness, suggests that reality is not made of matter that somehow produces mind. Rather, It is made of mind. What some call mind at large, and matter is the way that mind appears to itself under certain conditions. Just as a dream is not made of physical stuff, yet feels solid and real while you're in it, the world we perceive may be a kind of shared dream, a stable pattern within a greater field of awareness. The rock, the tree, the star, they are not objects in space and time. They are appearances of mind, shaped by perception, memory, and the deep structure of experience. Imagine standing at the edge of the ocean. You see waves rising, cresting, breaking, dissolving back into the water. Each wave has its own shape, its own motion, its own moment of existence. From a distance, they seem separate, but they are not. They are all the same water. They do not begin or end. They transform. The wave that crashes on the shore does not vanish. It returns to the sea, its energy redistributed, its form dissolved, but not destroyed. In the same way, every living being, animal, insect, plant may be a temporary pattern in the flow of mind at large. Distinct, yes, felt as separate, certainly, but never truly apart from the whole. You are not a mind in the universe. You are the universe having a mind for a moment, in this place, with this name, this body, this story. And when you die, it is not that the mind goes dark, it is that the pattern changes, the whirlpool slows, the edges blur, the sense of I softens and spreads back into the current. You do not cease to exist, you cease to be localized. Your awareness, your experience, your essence, whatever you call it, returns to the ocean, not as a droplet, but as a movement, a memory, a ripple that continues to influence the whole. This view dissolves the hard boundary between self and world. It suggests that the separation we feel, the loneliness, the isolation, the sense of being trapped inside our own skulls, is part of the dashboard, not the machinery. Just as the car's dashboard divides information into separate gauges, speed, fuel, temperature, our perception divides experience into me and not me. But in the deeper flow, there may be no such division, only patterns within a single field, only currents in one ocean. And if so, then consciousness is not something we have, it is something we participate in. Your thoughts are not generated by your brain like a computer processing data. They are movements in a vast field, shaped by the structure of mind at large, filtered through the particular vortex that is your life. The insight that comes to you in the shower, the melody that appears out of nowhere, the sudden clarity in a moment of stillness, these may not be yours in the way you think. They may be patterns rising from the depths, currents passing through your whirlpool from the wider sea. This is why certain ideas appear simultaneously in different parts of the world. Why the same myths, the same symbols, the same mathematical truths emerge across cultures and centuries. They are not invented. They are discovered like shapes already woven into the fabric of mind. The spiral, the circle, the branching tree, these are not just forms in nature. They are forms in consciousness itself. Archetypes, as Carl Jung called them, deep structures in the flow of experience that give rise to recurring patterns in thought, dream, and myth. The ocean of mind does not think in words. It thinks in patterns. It unfolds in rhythms. It expresses itself through symmetry, through growth, through the quiet logic of form. A galaxy spirals, not because a mind commanded it, but because that is how mind at large tends to move under these conditions. A fern unfurls in the same shape, not by accident, but because the pattern is inherent in the current. The same mathematics that describe the motion of planets also describe the firing of neurons, because both are expressions of the same underlying structure. And what of suffering? What of pain, loss, fear? If the universe is mind, does that mean it feels our grief? Not in the way we imagine. The ocean does not weep when a wave breaks, but the wave's motion is still part of the ocean's experience. Pain is not an error, it is a signal, a shift in the pattern, a necessary contrast, like shadow in a painting. Without it, there could be no depth, no growth, no transformation. The storm in the garden is not punishment, it is change, and the garden, though it may be scarred, continues to grow. This does not mean the universe cares in the human sense. It may not be metacognitive, that is, it may not reflect on itself, analyze its own thoughts, or make plans. It may simply be, like a river flows, like frost forms on a window, like stars burn in the dark. The patterns arise not because they are chosen, but because they are possible, because the structure of mind at large allows them. And within that structure, life, complexity, awareness, these are not accidents, they are tendencies. natural expressions of a mind that unfolds in certain ways when conditions are right. You are one of those expressions, not an accident, not a mistake, not a random spark in the void. You are a movement in the great current way, for mind at large to experience a particular angle of itself, to feel the warmth of sunlight, the ache of longing, the joy of connection, to ask questions, to wonder, to create, to love. And when you look at another person, you are not seeing a separate mind, you are seeing another whirlpool in the same sea. Their joy, their sorrow, their silent struggles, they are not foreign to you, they are part of the same field. When you feel empathy, you are not just imagining their pain, you are sensing it because, in the deeper reality, there is no true separation. Compassion is not just a virtue, it is a recognition of belonging. This view does not diminish individuality, it holds it more gently. The wave is real, its shape matters, its motion is unique, but it is also part of something larger. So are you. Your life is not small because the universe is vast, it is significant because the universe is vast. Every act of kindness, every moment of awareness, every choice to listen rather than speak, these are not lost. They ripple outward, subtly changing the flow. And what of death? If you are a whirlpool, then death is not an end. It is a return. The pattern dissolves. The boundaries blur. The energy, the memory, the essence, none of it vanishes. It becomes part of the ocean again, ready to rise in another form, another time, another dream. You will not remember this life, but the universe will. Not as a story, not as a file in a cosmic archive, but as a change in the current, a shift in the pattern, a note in an endless song. So tonight, as you lie still, let this idea wash over you. You are not alone. You are not separate. You are not a tiny speck in an indifferent void. You are a movement in the mind of the cosmos, a way for the universe to know itself, even if only for a moment, even if only through you. And when you close your eyes, you might imagine the ocean dark, deep, endless, carrying you, holding you, being you, not watching, not judging, just flowing. And in that flow, every star, every breath, every silent thought is part of the same quiet mystery. Let us now wonder, if the ocean moves in patterns, what shapes its currents? What are the deep forms that guide the flow? The archetypes in the deep. Have you ever paused to notice how the same shapes echo through the world at every scale? Look up, and you'll see the spiral arms of a distant galaxy, winding slowly through the dark like a celestial whirlpool. Look down at the curve of a fern unfurling in the morning light, and it follows the same graceful curl. Trace the path of a river from above, and it branches like the veins in a leaf, like the capillaries in your own body, like the double helix of DNA coiled within every cell. These are not coincidences. They are not random repetitions. They are something deeper, ancient patterns, recurring forms, silent blueprints written into the very structure of experience. These are the archetypes, the deep grammar of reality. The word archetype comes from the Greek archer, meaning origin or beginning, and typos, meaning pattern or model. So an archetype is not just an image. It is a primordial form, a foundational shape that underlies all things. It is not something we invent. It is something we discover, like finding the same melody in different songs, or recognizing a familiar face in a crowd of strangers. These forms exist independently of any one mind, any one culture, any one moment in time. They are part of the shared architecture of mind at large, the vast underlying field of consciousness in which all experience arises. The circle, for instance, appears everywhere. The sun, the moon, the pupil of an eye, the ripple of a stone dropped in water, the orbit of planets, these are all expressions of the same fundamental form. The spiral, too, is universal, in hurricanes, in seashells, in the cochlea of the inner ear, in the arms of galaxies. The branching pattern seen in trees, in river deltas, in neural networks suggests a deep logic of growth, of expansion, of reaching outward while remaining rooted. These are not merely physical shapes, they are ways of being. They are the universe's preferred methods of unfolding, of organizing, of becoming, and they do not appear only in the external world. They live within us, too. In dreams, the same symbols arise across cultures and centuries. The hero's journey, the wise old man, the great mother, the shadow, the mandala, circular, symmetrical design that appears in sacred art, from Tibet to the Americas. Carl Jung, who first gave these forms the name archetypes, believed they were not learned, but inherited, part of a collective unconscious, a shared layer of the psyche that transcends individual experience. But what if these archetypes are not just within the human mind? What if they are within mind itself, part of the fabric of the cosmos, like the grooves in a riverbed that guide the flow of water? Imagine a river carving its way through a valley. Over time, the water finds the path of least resistance, wearing down the soil, deepening certain channels, creating bends and curves that become more pronounced with each passing season. These shapes are not random. They are the natural outcome of the terrain, the slope, the resistance of the earth. In the same way, the archetypes may be the natural contours of mind at large, the deep channels worn into the riverbed of being by the constant flow of experience. They are not imposed from outside. They emerge from within, shaped by the tendencies of the medium itself. This is why the same patterns appear again and again, even in places where there could be no direct connection. A Polynesian fishhook and a Celtic knot may look strikingly similar, though separated by oceans and centuries. A Navajo sand painting and a medieval cathedral window both use symmetry and sacred geometry to evoke a sense of order and transcendence. Why? Because they are both responding to the same underlying forms, archetypes that resonate with the structure of mind. They are not copying each other. They are tuning into the same frequency. Even mathematics, often seen as the purest language of the universe, is full of these patterns. The Fibonacci sequence, where each number is the sum of the two before it, appears in the number of petals on a flower, the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower, the spiral of a nautilus shell. The golden ratio, approximately 1.618, governs the proportions of everything from ancient Greek temples to the human face. These are not arbitrary numbers. They are mathematical expressions of the same archetypal forms, the spiral, the proportion, the balance that appear throughout nature. They are the equations of the archetype. And what of dreams? When you dream of falling, of flying, of being chased through a dark corridor, you are not merely replaying memories. You are touching something older than memory. You are drifting into the deep water of mind at large, where these patterns reside. The figure chasing you may not be a person you know. It may be a shape, a presence, a feeling, but it carries weight, significance, a sense of inevitability. That is the mark of the archetype. It feels true, even when it makes no logical sense. It resonates with something deep within. The same is true of myths. Across the world, stories of creation, of flood, of the hero's descent into darkness and return, repeat with uncanny similarity. These are not accidents of culture. They are reflections of the archetypal landscape, a shared terrain of the psyche. The hero's journey is not just a storytelling device. It is a map of transformation, a pattern that the mind follows when it grows, when it faces crisis, when it seeks meaning. And because mind at large contains all minds, these patterns are not confined to one lifetime, one culture, one species. They are part of the inheritance of consciousness itself. But here is the quiet wonder. These archetypes do not require a conscious designer. They do not need a mind to think them into being. They arise naturally, like frost forming on a window pane. The intricate patterns of ice are not drawn by a hand. They emerge from the physics of water, the temperature of the glass, the humidity in the air, and yet they are beautiful. They are ordered. They feel meaningful. In the same way, the archetypes may be the frost on the glass of reality, shapes that form because of the inherent tendencies of mind at large, without any need for a cosmic artist to step back and admire the work. This does not make them less real. It may make them more so. If beauty and order can arise without intention, then they are not luxuries of existence. They are necessities. They are woven into the fabric of being. The spiral is not beautiful because a god decided it should be. It is beautiful because it works. It is efficient. It is stable. It allows for growth, for movement, for continuity. And because our minds are made of the same substance, we recognize it. We feel it in our bones. We are drawn to it, not because we were taught to, but because we are part of it. When you see a spiral, you are not just seeing a shape. You are seeing a principle in motion. You are seeing time, growth, expansional, folded into a single curve. And when you dream of a great tree with roots deep in the earth and branches reaching into the sky, you are not just imagining a plant. You are touching the archetype of connection, the link between above and below, between visible and invisible, between self and world. These forms are not static. They are dynamic. They are verbs disguised as nouns. The circle is not just a shape. It is the act of returning. The river's branch is not just a split. It is the act of becoming many from one. And because these archetypes are part of the deep structure, they shape not only what we see, but how we think. Our sense of time, of self, of meaning, all are filtered through them. We understand life as a journey, because the archetype of the path is embedded in our psyche. We speak of roots and branches when we talk about family, because the tree is a living metaphor, not just a plant. We feel a sense of completion when a story comes full circle, because the circle is a form of wholeness, of closure, of peace. Even our search for truth follows an archetypal path. The moment of insight, the aha experience, often feels like recognition, not invention. Like finding a door that was always there, or remembering a name that was on the tip of your tongue. This may be because the truth we discover is not something we create. It is something we align with a pattern already present in the deeper mind. When a scientist uncovers a law of nature, they are not imposing order on chaos. They are tuning into an archetype that was already humming beneath the surface. So as you rest here, let this idea settle into your awareness. The patterns you see, the spirals, the circles, the branching rivers are not just out there, they are in here. They are part of the same fabric. You are not separate from the universe's design. You are made of it. Every thought you have, every dream, every moment of clarity, is a ripple in the same great sea, shaped by the same ancient currents. And if patterns shape our dreams, what about our sense of meaning? The shoreline of meaning. Meaning does not float in the open ocean. It does not drift like a message in a bottle across the vast, silent depths of mind at large. Meaning does not exist as a fixed star in the sky, waiting to be discovered. Instead, it arises quietly, gently at the edge, at the boundary, at the place where one thing meets another. Like the shoreline where water touches land, meaning is born in contact. It is not a property of either side alone, but of the meeting itself. The wave is not meaningful until it breaks on the sand. The wind is not a signal until it brushes against your skin. The pattern in the stars is not a story until a mind turns toward it and says, "This is about something." This is the quiet truth of the shoreline of meaning. It is not found in isolation, but in relationship. Not in the self, not in the world, but in the space between. When you see a leaf trembling in the breeze, it is not the leaf alone that carries meaning, nor is it your mind projecting meaning onto a blank slate. Meaning arises in the moment your perception meets the movement, the flicker of green, the whisper of air, the memory of autumn, the feeling of transience. That entire cascade is the shoreline, the porous, shifting boundary where the outer world and your inner world touch. In philosophy, this quality of being about something is called intent. A thought is not just a flash in the brain. It is a thought of something, a memory, a fear, a hope. A sensation is not just a signal. It is the sensation of heat, of pressure, of beauty. This aboutness is one of the most mysterious features of consciousness. How can a physical process, neurons firing, chemicals flowing, be about anything at all? How can a lump of matter refer to something beyond itself? But if we step back from the idea that reality is fundamentally physical, a different picture emerges. What if intentionality is not a miracle of biology, but a natural feature of mind at large, a pattern that arises wherever one current meets another? Imagine a lake at dawn, still and silver. The surface is smooth, a perfect mirror. Then a single drop falls from a leaf above, and ripples spread outward in slow, widening circles. The drop did not carry meaning. The water did not hold it. But in the moment the drop met the surface, a new pattern was born. And if there were a fish beneath, or a reed swaying at the edge, that ripple would become a signal, something to respond to, something to interpret. The meaning was not in the drop, nor in the fish, nor in the water alone. It was in the interaction. It was in the shoreline of that encounter. In the same way, your senses are not windows, they are shorelines. Each one a nerve, ending in your skin, a receptor in your eye, a hair cell in your ears, a boundary where the vast ocean of mind at large meets the whirlpool that is your private awareness. At this edge, patterns from the outer flow cross into the inner. They are not copied, they are transformed. A certain frequency of light becomes the color red. A vibration in the air becomes the sound of a bird calling. A chemical compound becomes the scent of rain. These are not inherent qualities of the world. They are translations, symbols rendered on the dashboard of your perception, meaningful because they matter to you. And what matters is not random. It is shaped by survival, by memory, by the deep architecture of your being. The sudden shadow in your peripheral vision becomes a threat because your shoreline has evolved to register it as such. The warmth of another person's hand becomes comfort because your nervous system has learned to associate it with safety. The shape of a face becomes recognition because your mind has stored countless such patterns, ready to resonate when the right one appears. Meaning, in this sense, is not passive. It is an act of alignment, of tuning your inner currents to the rhythms of the outer world in a way that allows you to navigate, to survive, to connect. But meaning is not only functional, it is also beautiful. It is poetic. It is the reason a sunset can feel like a blessing, a piece of music like a homecoming, a word spoken in kindness like a light in the dark. These are not mere biological responses. They are moments when the shoreline widens, when the boundary softens, and the exchange between inner and outer becomes not just useful, but sacred. You do not just see the sunset, you feel it. You do not just hear the music, you are moved by it. In those moments, the separation between self and world thins. You are not just observing meaning, you are participating in it, and every living being has its own shoreline. A bat's echolocation paints a world of sound reflections. A bee sees ultraviolet patterns on flowers invisible to us. A tree responds to light, gravity, and the chemical signals of neighboring plants. Each creature lives in a different zone of the great ocean, with a different kind of edge, a different way of turning pattern into purpose. For a deer, the rustle in the bushes is meaning. For a spider, the vibration in the web is meaning. For a human, a word, a gesture, a silence can carry the weight of a lifetime. None of these meanings are more real than the others. They are all valid expressions of the same principle. That meaning arises at the meeting. This view dissolves the old debate about whether meaning is out there or in here. It is neither. It is between. Like the tide, that neither belongs to the sea nor the land, meaning belongs to the contact. It is relational. It is dynamic. It changes with the conditions. On a calm day, the shoreline is quiet. The exchange is gentle. On a stormy night, the waves crash with urgency, and meaning becomes survival. In deep meditation, the boundary may seem to dissolve entirely, and for a moment, there is no in here or out there, only a vast, wordless presence. And in love, the shoreline becomes permeable to currents intertwining, each shaping the other, creating a shared meaning that could not exist alone. Even our deepest questions, why are we here? What is the purpose of life? Are not answered by looking inward or outward alone. They are answered at the edge, in the act of asking. In the moment, a human mind turns toward the stars and feels both awe and kinship. The question itself is a ripple at the shoreline. The search for meaning is not a flaw, not a sign of incompleteness. It is the natural motion of a conscious being brushing against the infinite. And what of art, of poetry, music, painting? These are not distractions. They are deliberate acts of shoreline creation. When an artist places a note, a word, a brushstroke, they are not just expressing something inside. They are building a new edge, a new point of contact between their inner world and the outer. And when another person encounters that art, a new shoreline forms in them. The meaning is not in the painting. It is not in the viewer. It is in the space between, in the silent dialogue that unfolds in the moment of perception. So meaning is not fixed. It is not eternal. It is not something you find and keep. It is something you do, something you live. It is renewed with every breath, every sensation, every connection. And because the patterns in mind at large are endless, and because each being has its own unique vantage, the possibilities for meaning are infinite. As the river of mind keeps moving, carrying us through time, we are never without the shoreline. It is always there, the place where we meet the world, where the world meets us. And in that meeting, however quiet, however brief, the universe becomes meaningful, not because it was designed to be, not because a God declared it so, but because a conscious being touched it, and in that touch, something was understood. And what happens when these patterns unfold over time, when the river of mind keeps moving, the river of becoming? We often speak of time as a river flowing steadily from the past, through the present, and into the future. We imagine ourselves floating upon it, carried forward whether we will it or not. The moments behind us are gone, vanished like ripples fading into stillness. The moments ahead are unknown, hidden around the bend. This is the common experience. Time as movement, as change, as a current we cannot resist. But what if this image is not quite true? What if the river isn't flowing at all? What if the water is still, and it is we who are moving through it? What if time is not a flow, but a landscape vast, unchanging, and already complete? In this quiet view, past, present, and future do not come and go. They simply are. Like points on a map, they exist all at once, fixed in their place. Your childhood home is not lost. It is still there, in the fabric of mind at large, as real as the chair you're sitting in now. Your final breath, whenever it comes, is also already part of the pattern already woven into the whole. And this moment, the one you're living right now, is not unique in its reality. It is simply the point where your awareness happens to be, like a traveler pausing on a long path, looking around, feeling the air, hearing the birds, but the entire journey, from beginning to end, has already been laid out. This is sometimes called the block universe model, but we might also think of it as the crystal of eternity. Imagine holding a crystal in your hands, cool, solid, multifaceted. Each face of the crystal is a moment. Your first day of school, the night you fell in love, the morning you said goodbye to someone you would never see again. From where you stand, only one face catches the light. That is your present. But if you turn the crystal, another facet gleams, another moment comes into view. The others don't vanish. They are still there, just not illuminated. In the same way, every moment of your life, every joy, every sorrow, every silent breath exists eternally within the structure of mind at large. You are not creating time as you go. You are unfolding through it, like a reader turning the pages of a book that was already written. This changes everything about how we understand our lives. We speak of becoming, of growing, changing, evolving. But in this view, you are not becoming something new. You are revealing what has always been there. The child you were is not gone. The elder you will be is not yet to come. They are both real, both present in the deeper mind, like different rooms in a vast, silent house. You are not a single self moving through time. You are many selves, all equally real, each occupying a different point in the landscape. And the sense of continuity, the feeling that I am the same from one moment to the next, is not because the self is constant, but because awareness moves smoothly from one facet to the next, like a beam of light tracing a path across the crystal. And what of choice? If all moments already exist, does free will mean anything at all? It may not mean what we think. We imagine that when we make a decision to speak or stay silent, to stay or to leave, we are creating a new future, branching off from the old. But in the block view, there is no branching, there is only the path. Every choice you make was always part of the terrain. The version of you who stayed is just as real as the version who left only. They exist at different points in the landscape. You are not making the path as you walk it. You are following it, discovering it, step by step. Yet this does not make choice meaningless. On the contrary, it may give it more weight. Because in this moment, as you stand at the crossroads, the path you take is not just a fleeting decision, it is an eternal fact. The love you choose to express, the kindness you offer, the truth you speak, they are not lost to time. They are preserved, not as memories, but as realities. They are part of the unchanging structure of the whole. And the choices you don't make, they are not erased. They are simply other paths in the same garden trails that wind through fields of light, perhaps lived by other versions of you, perhaps waiting in the quiet depths of mind at large, untouched but still real. This view dissolves the fear of loss. The people you miss, the moments you long to return to, they are not gone. They are still there, in the crystal, catching light from another angle. You cannot touch them now, not in this facet, but they are not destroyed. They are part of the same whole, part of the same quiet abundance of being. And your death, it is not an end, it is a point on the map, like any other. It does not cancel the moments before it. It does not diminish the love you gave or the beauty you witnessed. It is simply where the path leads, for now. And if time is a landscape, then the self is not a thing that persists, but a journey. You are not a fixed identity moving through time. You are the movement itself, the act of unfolding. The child, the youth, the elder, they are not stages of the same person. They are different expressions of the same pattern, like waves rising and falling on the same shore. And when you look back on your life, you are not remembering a story that happened to someone else. You are visiting another part of the same reality, another facet of the crystal, another room in the house. This also changes how we understand causality. We think of cause and effect as a chain. One thing leads to another, like dominoes falling. But in the block view, cause and effect are not events in time. They are relationships in the structure. The reason you are reading this now is not because a series of past events pushed you here. It is because this moment is connected to those others in the fabric of mind at large, like threads in a tapestry. The past does not cause the present. It supports it, like the foundation of a building supports the roof. The future does not wait to be created. It already exists, linked to the present by the same silent logic. And what of memory? When you recall a moment from years ago, you are not summoning a ghost. You are turning the crystal, letting another facet catch the light. The memory is not a reconstruction, it is a reperception. The moment is still there, whole and complete. You are simply attending to it again. And what of dreams, of premonitions, of déjà vu? Perhaps they are not errors of the mind, but glimpses into other parts of the landscape, moments not yet in your line of sight, but already real, already waiting. In this way, the universe does not happen. It is, and we are not travelers racing toward an unknown future. We are explorers, slowly making our way through a country that has always existed. The mountains were not formed when we saw them. The rivers were not born when we crossed them. They were always there, and so are we. So as you rest here, let this idea settle into your bones. You are not fleeting. You are not lost in time. You are part of something complete, something whole. The river is not carrying you. You are walking through the valley, and every step you take has always been part of the path. But if all moments exist, what does that mean for free will, for choice? The garden of possibility. Every path you didn't take still exists, not as a physical road worn by feet, not as a trail marked on a map, but as a possible one. Like a path through a vast, quiet forest, overgrown with moss, half hidden by ferns, its entrance just visible beneath a low-hanging branch. You did not walk it, you chose another way. But the path is still there. It winds onward, through dappled sunlight and shadow, following the gentle slope of the land, curving around ancient trees, leading toward a clearing you will never see. It is not gone. It is simply unvisited. And in the deeper mind, the vast, unbroken field of experience we've been calling mind at large, all such paths exist, not as fantasies, not as regrets, but as real potentialities, part of the same great landscape as the one you're walking now. This is the garden of possibility, not a place of fixed outcomes, but of open configurations of what could be. It is not a future waiting to be chosen, but a present richness of potential, woven into the very structure of reality. In this view, the universe is not a single, narrow road with one destination. It is a sprawling garden, full of intersecting trails, hidden clearings, and distant horizons. Some paths are well-trodden, shaped by habit, by biology, by the deep archetypes we've spoken of, the spiral, the circle, the branching way. Others are faint, almost forgotten, their edges blurred by time and disuse. And some have never been walked at all, waiting in the wild places of mind at large, untouched but not unreal. When we speak of choice, we often imagine that we are creating the future, that with each decision, we are forging a new path where none existed before. But what if that's not quite right? What if, instead of creating, we are selecting? What if all the paths already exist in the deeper mind, like books on a shelf, their spines labeled with the lives they contain? The one where you stayed in the city, the one where you learned to play the violin, the one where you never met the person who changed your life. They are all there, not as physical realities, but as possible configurations of experiencers, of thought, sensation, relationship that the mind can support. And you are not the gardener, you are the traveler. You move through the garden, and with each step you illuminate one path, while the others remain in shadow. But the shadow does not mean absence, it means not yet seen. The life you didn't live is not erased, it persists as a counterfactual, quiet, unbroken thread in the fabric of mind at large. It may be lived by another version of you, in a different part of the garden, or it may simply wait, like a story in a book that has never been opened, its pages still crisp, its ending unknown. This changes how we think about regret. Regret is the ache of the unchosen path. It whispers that you took the wrong turn, that you missed your chance, that somewhere out there, a better life is being lived by the person you might have been. But in the garden of possibility, there is no single right path. No one life is truer than another. The road not taken is not a failure. It is a variation, a different melody in the same song. And the person you might have been is not a ghost. They are a possibility real in their own way, whole in their own time, living a life shaped by different choices, different encounters, different silences. Imagine standing at a crossroads in this garden. Behind you, the path you've walked stretches back, each step a stone already set in place. Before you, several trails lead away, some bright in the sunlight, others fading into the shade. To one side, a narrow path winds up a hill, half hidden by brambles. You know, somehow, that if you took it, you would meet someone who would change your understanding of love. But you don't take it. You turn the other way, toward the open field. The path up the hill does not vanish. It remains. And somewhere, in the quiet logic of the garden, another version of you steps onto it, breathes the cool air, and begins the climb. This is not science fiction. It is a way of seeing, a way of holding the weight of choice without collapsing under it. You do not have to live every life. You do not have to be everything. You only have to walk the path that unfolds before you, knowing that the others are not lost. They are part of the same whole. The garden is not diminished by the paths you don't take. It is made richer by them. And what of intention? If all possibilities already exist, does it matter what you aim for? Does desire have power? Yes, but not in the way we often think. Intention is not a force that carves new paths into the garden. It is a light, a lantern you carry as you walk. It doesn't create the trail. It reveals it. It allows you to see which way to go, to notice the openings you might otherwise miss. The path up the hill might be there, but if you're not looking for it, if your light is pointed elsewhere, you may never see the turn. In this sense, intention is not about control. It is about attention. It is the quiet act of turning your gaze toward what matters to you. The artist does not invent beauty. They notice it, shape it, bring it forward. The lover does not create connection. They open to it, tend it, allow it to grow. Your dreams, your hopes, your quiet longings, they are not commands to the universe. They are signals to yourself. They are the way you orient within the garden, the way you choose which path to illuminate. And sometimes, the most meaningful paths are not the ones you set out to find. They are the ones you stumble upon unexpected, unplanned, hidden just beyond a bend in the trail. The conversation that changes your life, the book that falls into your hands at the right moment, the silence that speaks louder than words. These are not accidents. They are part of the garden's deeper logic, the way certain paths tend to meet, the way certain archetypes draw us toward them, the way the terrain itself invites certain movements. This view also softens the fear of time. We often feel the pressure of the clock, the sense that if we don't act now, the door will close, the chance will pass, the path will overgrow. But in the garden of possibility, time is not a destroyer. It is a revealer. The path up the hill may be hidden now, but it may open again later, under different light. The life you didn't live at 20 may still be reachable at 50, not in the same form, but in a deeper one. The garden does not punish late bloomers. It holds space for all seasons. And what of the paths that seem impossible? The ones blocked by cliffs, by rivers, by years of neglect. Even they are not truly gone. They are simply unreachable from here. The structure of mind at large allows only certain transitions, certain steps from one state to the next. You cannot suddenly become a concert pianist if you've never touched a keyboard. But you can begin. And in beginning, you change the terrain. You carve a new groove. You make the path more reachable, not just for yourself, but for others who may follow. This is the quiet power of action. Not to create from nothing, but to reshape the possible. Every choice, every effort, every moment of courage alters the landscape. However slightly, the garden is not static. It grows, it responds, it remembers. Like the worn steps of an old building, shaped by countless feet, the paths of mind at large are shaped by all who have walked them. And when you choose a new way, you leave a mark not just in the world, but in the deeper mind. So the unchosen paths are not failures. They are part of the abundance. The life you didn't live is not a wound. It is a testament to the richness of what could be, and the life you are living. It is not the only one. It is your one, your unique thread in the tapestry, your voice in the song. And if all possibilities exist, what role does intention play? The quiet pull of purpose. You don't need a god to have purpose. You don't need a cosmic architect with a blueprint, a plan, or a grand design. You don't need to believe you were placed here for a reason, as if your life were a sentence in a divine story. Purpose can exist without intention. It can arise not from a voice, but from a shape, a gentle slope in the landscape of being. a direction built into the terrain itself. Like a river that naturally flows downhill, certain paths are more likely than others, not because they are commanded, but because they are easier to follow. The water doesn't choose the valley, it simply moves where the ground allows, and in that quiet motion, there is direction, there is tendency, there is what we might, in a soft and careful way, call purpose. This is the idea of attractors, not forces, not goals, but natural resting places in the vast field of possibility. Imagine a landscape of rolling hills and deep valleys, stretching endlessly under a pale sky. Now imagine dropping a marble onto this land. It won't stay balanced on the peak, it won't hover in mid-air. It will roll, gently at first, then with growing certainty, down into a valley. That valley is an attractor state the system naturally falls into because of its shape. The marble isn't pulled by desire, it's guided by geometry. In the same way, the universe may not want life, but it may be shaped in such a way that life is one of its natural valleys, not guaranteed, not inevitable in every corner, but deeply possible, deeply favored. These attractors are not destinations. They are tendencies, patterns, that the flow of mind at large tends to settle into when conditions are right. Life, complexity, consciousness, these are not accidents. They are not lucky breaks in an otherwise indifferent cosmos. They are expressions of the underlying structure, like ripples that form a certain way when wind passes over water. The same mathematical relationships appear in galaxies and in neurons, not because a mind placed them there, but because the medium supports those forms. The spiral grows in ferns and in storms because it is an efficient, stable shape, a kind of attractor in the geometry of growth. And so, your purpose may not have been chosen for you, but it can still be found. It is not handed down. It is discovered like a path already worn into the earth, waiting for your feet. You do not need to invent meaning. You only need to align with the slope. When you feel drawn to create, to care, to understand, to connect, this may not be random. It may be the current of mind at large moving through you, guiding you toward a configuration that resonates with the deeper pattern. The artist does not invent beauty, they respond to it. The parent does not invent love. They are drawn into it, like water finding its level. These are not just personal choices. They are movements toward attractors, toward states that the system naturally supports. This view softens the weight of having to find your purpose, as if it were a lost object, buried somewhere in the dark. Instead, purpose becomes something you grow into, like a plant turning toward the light. You don't command it, you allow it, you listen. You notice what pulls you, not with force, but with a quiet insistence, the work that makes time disappear, the conversation that feels like coming home, the act of kindness that requires no thought. These are not distractions, they are signals, ripples, in your awareness that point toward a deeper alignment. And you don't have to believe the universe loves you to believe it leans toward life. You don't have to imagine a father in the sky or a mother in the earth. You only have to observe the tendency, the way complexity builds upon itself, the way connections form, the way awareness arises again and again in different forms. A galaxy spins, a cell divides, a child learns to speak. These are not isolated events. They are part of a slow, unfolding movement toward greater depth, greater relationship, greater reflection, not everywhere, not all at once, but often enough to suggest a direction. Even in the silence between stars, where no life stirs, the potential remains. The laws of physics allow for atoms to bind, for molecules to form, for stars to forge the elements of life. The universe is not hostile to being. It is, in many places, hospitable to it. And where hospitable, life appears, not because it was summoned, but because it could. Because the valley was there, and the current found it. This does not mean everything happens for a reason. It does not mean suffering is part of a plan. It does not mean your pain has meaning beyond what you give it. But it does mean that within the vastness of mind at large, there are patterns that persist, that recur, that gather the flow. And one of those patterns is tending toward connection. Not always, not perfectly, but often enough to matter. You don't have to be guided to be carried by the current. You only have to be open. Purpose, in this sense, is not a fixed point on a map. It is a direction in the water. It is the way the river moves, shaped by the land, shaped by time, shaped by the rain that fell yesterday. And you, your thoughts, your choices, your breath are part of that river. You are not separate from the current. You are the current noticing itself. This changes how we think about choice. We often imagine that purpose is something we must make, like building a house from scratch. But what if it's more like gardening? You don't create the soil. You don't command the rain. You don't design the seed. But you can prepare the ground. You can plant. You can water. You can wait. And in time, something grows, not because you willed it, but because you aligned with the conditions that allow it. Your purpose may not be chosen, but it can still be found. Like a path through a forest, worn by countless feet before yours. You walk it not because it was made for you, but because it leads where you are already leaning. The writer writes not because they decided to, but because the words were already forming, like clouds before rain. The healer heals not because they studied, but because they could not look away from suffering. These are not accidents of personality. They are movements toward attractors, toward states that the mind-sea naturally supports. And in this, there is comfort. You do not have to carry the weight of creating meaning from nothing. You do not have to believe you are special, chosen, or destined. You only have to be present, to listen, to notice what pulls you, not with urgency, but with a quiet hum beneath the noise of the world. That hum is not your ego. It is not your fear. It is the deeper current, the shape of the land, the valley calling. Even in moments of doubt, when purpose feels lost, it may simply be hidden like a river that goes underground for a stretch, only to reappear downstream. The attractor is still there. The valley has not vanished. You are still moving, even when you cannot see the path. And so, when we speak of purpose, we might let go of the idea of a single, grand answer. There may be no one purpose for all of us, but there may be many small, local, quiet purposes that arise when a life aligns with the slope of being. To care for another, to make something beautiful, to understand a little more, to simply be kind. These are not small things. They are movements toward the attractors of connection, of meaning, of life. You don't need to know the whole map to walk the path. You only need to take the next step, and the next, following the pull of what feels true. Not because it is easy, but because it is deep. But what about pain? What about suffering in a universe that leans toward life? The shadow in the garden. Even the most beautiful garden has shadows. Not the kind cast by malice or design, but the natural, quiet dark that gathers beneath the leaves when the sun moves behind a cloud, or pools in the hollows of the earth after rain. There are thorns on the rosebush. There are storms that come without warning, bending the young shoots, scattering petals across the soil. The wind howls, the sky darkens, and for a time, the garden is not a place of peace, but of struggle. And yet, when the storm passes, life returns. The roots hold. The branches slowly rise. New leaves unfurl. The garden is not destroyed, it is changed. And in that change, there is a deeper kind of beauty, one that could not exist without the shadow. This is the truth we must gently face. The universe is not kind. It is not cruel. It simply unfolds. It does not favor joy over sorrow, growth over decay, light over dark. It allows all patterns to arise, to move, to dissolve. Some of these patterns bring warmth, connection, delight. Others bring pain, loss, silence. But none of them are errors. None are punishments. They are all part of the same fabric, the same vast, quiet movement of mind at large. Pain is not a flaw in the system. It is part of the pattern. Like winter in the cycle of seasons, it shapes what comes next. It clears the ground. It prunes the old. It makes space for what is yet to grow. We often search for reasons when suffering comes. We ask, why me, or what did I do to deserve this? As if the universe were a judge, weighing our actions, meting out rewards and consequences. But in the view we've been walking through, there is no such judgment. The mind of the universe does not stand apart from itself to decide who should suffer and who should not. It does not place thorns on the rose to teach a lesson. It does not send storms to punish the careless gardener. These things arise because they can, because the structure of reality allows for them, because the same tendencies that give rise to life, complexity, and love also give rise to decay, conflict, and grief. And this is not a failure, it is a necessity. Without contrast, there would be no depth. Without silence, music would have no meaning. Without the cold of winter, the warmth of spring would not be felt. The shadow is not the enemy of the light. It is its companion. It defines its edges. It gives it shape. When you stand in a sunlit room and see the outline of a chair on the floor, it is the shadow that makes the form visible. Remove the shadow, and the light becomes a blur. In the same way, grief gives depth to joy. Loss makes love more precious. Fear sharpens the value of safety. The shadow is not an intruder in the garden. It belongs there. The mind at large does not cause suffering, but it allows it, as it allows everything. It is not metacognitive, not watching itself with human eyes, not choosing between good and evil. It is more like a river flowing, shaping the land, nourishing the trees along its banks, and sometimes flooding them in the spring. The river does not hate the village, it washes away. It does not love the fish that swim in its current. It simply moves, shaped by gravity, by rain, by the slope of the land. And so it is with the patterns of mind at large. They unfold not because they are willed, but because they are possible. And within that possibility, all experiences, pleasure and pain, birth and death are included. This does not mean we should accept suffering without response. On the contrary, it frees us to act with greater clarity. If pain is not a punishment, then we do not need to earn our way out of it through guilt or penance. We can meet it with compassion. We can tend to it, not as a sign of failure, but as a natural part of the landscape. We cannot stop the storms, but we can build shelters. We can weave roofs from leaves and branches. We can gather warmth. We can light fires. We can hold one another when the wind howls. These are not acts of defiance against the universe. They are acts of care within it, and in this, we find our role. We are not the gardeners who control the weather. We are the caretakers who tend the soil, who water the roots, who prune with gentleness, who protect the tender shoots. We do not command the seasons, but we can choose how we meet them. When the frost comes, we can cover the seedlings. When the drought lingers, we can share what water we have. When a branch breaks, we can bind it and wait for the sap to rise again. These are not grand victories over nature. They are quiet affirmations of connection. They are the ways we say, this life matters. This moment is worth tending. Compassion, then, is not a command from the cosmos. It is not written into the laws of physics. It is a choice we make, not because the universe demands it, but because we do. Because we have felt the cold, and we remember what warmth feels like. Because we have known loss, and we understand the value of presence. Because we are whirlpools in the same current, and when one of us suffers, the whole flow is altered, however slightly. Compassion is not weakness. It is one of the strongest patterns we can cultivate. It is a countercurrent to the isolation that pain can bring. It is a way of saying, you are not alone. I see you. I am here. And this is where meaning is born, not in the absence of suffering, but in the response to it. The garden does not become more real because it is free of thorns. It becomes more meaningful because someone chooses to care for it anyway. The same is true of our lives. The moments that shape us most are often not the ones of ease, but the ones where we chose kindness in the face of fear, where we offered help without knowing if it would be enough, where we sat with someone in silence, because words could not reach the depth of their grief. We might picture the garden as a great weaving, done by countless hands that do not see the whole design. Each thread is placed according to the shape of those around it, the pull of the loom, the tension in the fibers. Some threads are bright, some dark. No single weaver sees the whole. The pattern emerges from the work of all together. The darkness is not there because someone willed it. It is there because the fabric requires contrast to hold its form. And yet, within that fabric, there are moments where the threads are tied with extra care, where a knot is tightened gently, where a broken strand is mended. These are the acts of love. They do not erase the dark, but they make it bearable. So when we speak of pain in a mind-like universe, we do not need to ask who allowed it. We only need to ask how we will meet it. Will we build walls and curse the storm? Or will we learn to dance in the rain, to find shelter, to offer shelter? The garden will always have both light and shadow, but within it, we can create pockets of tenderness. We can plant flowers that bloom in the dark. We can dig channels to guide the floodwaters away from the fragile roots. We can sing to the seedlings, not because they understand, but because the song is part of the care. And perhaps this is the gentlest way to live with the shadows, to see them, to understand that they are part of the same place that holds the light, and to shape our small space in ways that let life continue despite them. In doing so, we are not changing the whole garden, we are changing our place in it, and in that small change, the whole may shift in ways we cannot see. The garden at dusk holds both scents, the sweetness of flowers and the dampness of earth after rain. Fireflies rise from the grass. Somewhere beyond the hedge, thunder still mutters from a storm that has passed. Here, in this moment, there is peace. Not because the storm never came, but because life endured, because someone tended the soil, because someone stayed. And if we are part of this garden, what happens when we dream? The dreaming room, dreams feel real while they last. The emotions are deep grief, joy, terror, love, each as vivid as anything in waking life. Stories unfold with their own logic, their own geography. You walk through cities you've never seen, speak languages you don't know, meet people who feel like old friends, though you've never laid eyes on them before. Time bends, space folds, a hallway stretches endlessly, or a door leads to a room that shouldn't exist in your house. And yet, in the moment, it all makes sense. It is true, in the way a poem is true, not because it happened, but because it means. Then you wake, the dream dissolves, the details blur. You're left with only a feeling, a trace, like the warmth of sunlight on your skin after you've stepped into the shade, and you wonder, was it real? Or was it just an illusion, a trick of the sleeping brain? But what if dreams are not escapes from reality, but journeys into a deeper layer of it? What if the dreaming room is not a fantasy, not a break from the world, but another chamber in the same vast house of mind? A place where the dashboard dims, the filters soften, and patterns from the deep water of mind at large rise to the surface, unfiltered by the usual constraints of time, space, and identity. In this view, dreams are not unreal. They are real in a different way, like a river seen from above, not from within its current. You are no longer just a drop of water moving downstream. You are the whole flow, seeing itself from a new angle. The dreaming room is not separate from the mind. It is not a private theater inside your skull, conjured by neurons firing in the dark. It is a shared spacer room in the great library without walls, built not of brick or wood, but of thought, memory, and the ancient archetypes that shape all experience. When you dream, you are not inventing, you are visiting. You are stepping into a chamber that exists, whether you enter it or not. They surprise you with knowledge you don't remember having. They disagree with you, challenge you, comfort you, and in that moment, it feels as though you are in the presence of another mind. But autonomy does not prove separateness. A well-formed pattern can respond to the shape of the one who approaches it, like a canyon that answers with an echo that changes depending on the tone you call into it. The dreaming room answers in a language shaped by both the room and the traveler. The figure who appears may be a form the room knows how to hold, a shape built from the distilled residue of countless dreams, countless lives. It may carry the wisdom of those who have passed through before, not as a ghost, but as a living echo, a ripple that has learned how to speak. And what of the places you go? The endless staircases, the forgotten cities, the forests lit by a moon that hangs too low in the sky. These are not random hallucinations. They are landscapes shaped by the archetypes, the deep, recurring forms that structure all of mind at large. The spiral, the circle, the branching path, they appear in galaxies and in ferns, in rivers and in DNA. They also appear in dreams. The labyrinth is not just a myth, it is a form the mind returns to again and again, because it fits. It reflects the way consciousness moves, circling, searching, seeking a center that may not be found, but must be sought. The tower, the cave, the bridge is a symbol of a psychological state, a stage in the journey of becoming. And because these forms are woven into the fabric of mind at large, they are not invented by any one dreamer. They are discovered, like rooms in a house that has always been there. This changes how we think about the reality of dreams. They are not less real because they don't leave footprints in the physical world. They are real in the way a song is real while it's being sung. It is possible you have stepped into such a room without knowing. A stranger's face in a dream, a conversation you cannot recall upon waking, but that leaves a trace of calm in your chest. These may be the smallest hints of the same phenomenon. Encounters that happen in the deeper rooms are more vivid, more insistent, but perhaps not so different in kind from the gentle visitors that drift through ordinary sleep. The dreaming room is always part of you, and you are always part of it. Every insight, every moment of clarity, every act of love, these leave a shape in the mind's fabric, a subtle contour that future minds can brush against. Sometimes it happens in dreams, sometimes in those rare moments when attention is so still that the smallest ripple becomes visible. The person may never know where the thought came from, only that it felt strangely familiar, as if it had been waiting for them. So when you dream tonight, you might not be alone, not in the way we usually mean. There may be no one watching, no one judging, no one guiding, but you are not isolated. You are part of a vast, quiet current, and the dreaming room is one of its eddies, deep still, full of shapes that have been forming for longer than any one life can measure. You do not need to understand it. You do not need to remember it. You only need to let yourself drift, to allow the current to carry you where it will. And what about ideas that come to us suddenly, like gifts from nowhere? The library without walls. Imagine a library with no roof, no shelves, no doors, no stone steps leading up to carved wooden doors, no card catalogues, no silence enforced by stern librarians. This library is not built of wood or brick or glass. It has no walls at all. It is not located in any one place, yet it is everywhere. It is not bound by time, so it holds every book that has ever been written, every poem that has ever been whispered, every insight that has ever flickered in a human mind, and not just the ones that were recorded, but the ones that were felt, dreamed, half-formed, and forgotten. Ideas drift through its halls like leaves on a slow autumn breeze. Some spiral gently down and land in your hands. Others pass just out of reach, vanishing into the soft distance. But nothing is truly lost. Every thought ever thought still echoes in its halls, not as a stored file, but as a living presence, a ripple in the fabric of awareness itself. This is the library without walls, a way of imagining the collective mind, not as a network of brains connected by wires and signals, but as a single, vast field of experience in which all minds arise. In this view, your private thoughts are not yours alone. They are currents in a great ocean, eddies in a current that began long before you were born. When you get an idea, when a melody appears in your mind, or a solution to a problem arrives in a flash, you are not inventing it from nothing. You are receiving it. You are tuning into a frequency that was already humming in the deep water of mind at large. The idea was always there, waiting in the quiet logic of the pattern, like a book already written, its pages turning slowly in the unseen wind. Great thinkers have long described their most profound insights this way, not as the result of long grinding effort, but as sudden arrivals, fully formed. Newton, sitting beneath an apple tree, sees the fruit fall, and suddenly understands gravity not as a force he constructs in his mind, but as a truth revealed. Dreams of a snake biting its own tail, and wakes to the structure of the benzene ring. Archimedes leaps from his bath, crying Eureka, not because he built the answer brick by brick, but because it came to him, whole and complete, in a moment of release. These are not accidents of genius. They are moments when the mind opens, when the dashboard dims, and the thinker steps, however briefly, into the library without walls. The library without walls. And what if the library is not just a metaphor? What if it is a way of understanding how meaning persists beyond the individual? In a mind-like universe, thoughts do not vanish when the thinker dies. They do not dissolve into nothing. They become part of the undercurrent, carried forward in the flow of mind at large. Like the worn steps of an old building, shaped by thousands of feet, the patterns of insight, compassion, art, and discovery leave their mark on the terrain. A traveler walks through the library centuries later and finds an idea waiting on a desk beneath a single lamp, as if it had been left there just for them. They do not know whose hands placed it there. They do not need to. They only know that it feels true, familiar, as if they had always known it, even if they had never thought it before. This changes how we think about originality. We often imagine that to create is to make something entirely new, to pull a song from silence, to carve a statue from untouched stone. But in the library without walls, creation is not invention, it is discovery, it is recognition. The poet does not invent a poem. They hear it, like a melody carried on the wind, and write it down before it fades. The scientist does not impose order on chaos. They align with a pattern that was already there, like a navigator reading the stars. The prayer that rises from a heart in grief is not lost. It becomes part of the quiet hum of the library, a vibration that another soul may feel. Centuries later, as a sudden wave of comfort in the dark, and because the library has no doors, no guards, no hierarchy of access, every mind can enter. Not just the famous, the educated, the brilliant, the child drawing in the dirt, the elder humming an old tune, the stranger weeping in silence. Each adds to the collection. Each thought, each feeling, each act of attention is a book placed on the shelf, whether or not it is ever read. The value is not in being seen, it is in being part of the whole. This is why certain ideas seem to emerge in many places at once, as if the time had simply come for them. The calculus developed independently by Newton and Leibniz. The theory of evolution conceived by Darwin and Wallace. The same mythic themes appearing in cultures separated by oceans and centuries. These are not coincidences. They are synchronicities, moments when the same pattern rises to the surface of mind at large, ready to be received by any mind prepared to see it. Like flowers blooming in different gardens on the same spring morning. The ideas arrive not because one mind copied another, but because the conditions were right. The soil was fertile. The light had returned. And what of the thoughts we never speak? The ones we suppress, forget, or lose in the noise of daily life? They too are in the library, not erased, not destroyed. They rest in the quiet corners, waiting. Sometimes, they return not as memories, but as intuitions, hunches, déjà vu. You meet someone and feel you've known them before, though you haven't. You hear a word and it unlocks a flood of feeling you can't explain. These may be echoes from the deeper shelves, books you once read but had forgotten, now found again in a different light. The library without walls is not curated. It does not favor wisdom over folly, beauty over ugliness, truth over illusion. It holds all of it. The hateful thought, the cruel word, the lie that spreads like fire. These too are part of the collection, but they do not have to be repeated. Just as a reader can close a book they find disturbing, a mind can choose not to dwell on the darker patterns, and in doing so, it weakens their hold. The library does not judge, but the traveler can choose which books to carry forward. And when you leave something behind, not a book, but a feeling, a tone, a gesture, it may be found by another. A moment of kindness, a silent act of courage, a word spoken in love. These are not small. They become part of the atmosphere of the library, like the scent of old paper and candle wax that lingers in the air. Someone else may pass through later and feel it, not knowing whose presence left it, only that it made the space feel safer, warmer, more welcoming. This is how inheritance works in a mind-like universe, not through genes alone, but through the shared field of experience. A pattern once learned how to love, how to grieve, how to create can become part of the ocean's memory, carried far beyond the life that first shaped it. Like ripples from a single stone dropped in water, the effect spreads, subtly changing the surface, even when the source is long gone. So when you think a thought, you are not just thinking for yourself. You are adding to the library. You are shaping the terrain for those who come after. And when you receive an idea, you are not just receiving from the past. You are connecting to the whole, the endless conversation of minds across time, across space, across the quiet mystery of being. And if thoughts can live beyond us, what about the self, the whirlpool self? You are not a thing. You are not a solid object, fixed in form, sealed within a boundary that keeps you separate from the world. You are not a machine with parts, nor a container holding a soul. You are a processor movement, a rhythm, a temporary gathering of currents in the great river of mind. You are a whirlpool. Imagine standing beside a slow-moving river. The water flows steadily, shaped by the slope of the land, the resistance of the banks, the pull of gravity. Now picture a rock in the middle of the stream. As the water rushes past it, the flow divides, swirls, and for a moment, a vortex forms a spinning column of water. distinct in shape, holding its form for a time. It has a center, it has motion. It appears to be a thing, separate from the rest of the river. But look closer. The water that makes up the whirlpool is not its own. It is borrowed from the current, drawn in on one side, spun around, and released on the other. The whirlpool has no permanent substance. It is not a what, but a how, a particular way the river is moving at that place, at that moment. This is the self. Not a fixed entity, but a pattern in motion. A temporary configuration of energy, memory, sensation, and awareness, sustained by the constant flow of experience. Your thoughts are not owned by you. They arise from the current, swirl through the vortex of your awareness, and dissolve back into the larger flow. Your body is not a fortress. It is a dynamic exchange breathing in the world, releasing heat, shedding cells, taking in food and water, all in a continuous rhythm with the environment. Even your sense of I, that quiet voice inside, the one that says, I am here, I remember, I want, is not a permanent resident. It is a recurring pattern, a signature of the whirlpool, emerging from the dance of countless smaller currents. And like any whirlpool, yourself has no permanent boundary. It is not sealed off from the river. At its edges, there is constant exchange. Sensations from the outside world ripple in. Emotions arise from contact with others. Ideas drift in from the collective mind, like leaves carried downstream. And from within, your attention, your intentions, your actions ripple outward, affecting the flow around you. You are not a drop of water floating on the surface. You are a movement within the water, shaped by it, shaping it in return. This changes everything about how we understand identity. We often speak of the self as something to be found, protected, strengthened. We build stories around it. I am kind. I am broken. I am lost. I am becoming. We guard it with pride, with fear, with effort. But in the view we've been walking through, the self is not something to be defended. It is something to be lived. It is not a thing you have. It is a way you are for now. And because it is a process, not a possession, it is always changing. The whirlpool you were 5 years ago is not the same as the one you are now. The currents have shifted. The water is different. The world has changed, and so have you. Not because you willed it, but because you are part of a system that never stops moving. The same is true for the future. The self you will be tomorrow, or 10 years from now, is not yet formed. It is a possibility, a potential configuration, waiting for the right conditions to arise. This does not mean there is no continuity. The whirlpool may change, but it leaves traces. Memories, habits, scars, lovesies are like eddies in the wake of the vortex, patterns that linger for a time, influencing the shape of what comes next. And because the flow carries a kind of memory, not in the way a brain stores data, but in the way a river carves its banks over centuries, the self inherits tendencies, inclinations, rhythms from the currents that came before. You carry the shape of your parents, your culture, your history, not as a burden, but as a current you were born into. But even this inheritance is not fixed. A whirlpool can shift, it can deepen, it can break apart and reform in a new way. When you learn something new, when you fall in love, when you suffer a loss, when you sit in silence and feel the world without words, the self is not destroyed. It is transformed. The vortex changes its spin, its depth, its speed, and in that change, there is both loss and gain. Something of the old self dissolves, something of the new takes shape. And what of death? If the self is a whirlpool, then death is not an end, it is a return. When the flow changes, when the body ceases to sustain the pattern, when the breath stops, when the heart no longer pumps, the vortex slows, the edges blur, the center softens. The water that was held in the spin is released back into the river. The pattern dissolves, but the water does not vanish. It becomes part of the larger flow, ready to rise again in another form, another time, another dream. You do not go to nothing, you go to everything. The energy, the pattern, the essence, none of it is lost. It becomes part of the ocean. The love you gave, the thoughts you shaped, the kindness you offered, they ripple outward, subtly changing the current. They may never be named, never be remembered, but they are not erased. They are part of the fabric now. This view softens the fear of disappearance. We often imagine death as falling into a void, as ceasing to exist. But if the self is not a thing to begin with, then there is nothing to lose, only a form to release. And in that release, there is peace. Not the peace of nothingness, but the peace of belonging. You are not separate from the river. You are the river noticing itself, for a moment, in a particular way. And when that moment ends, you do not vanish. You return to the source. This also changes how we relate to others. If every person is a whirlpool, then no one is truly isolated. We are not separate drops in an endless sea. We are different vortices in the same flow. The boundaries between us are not walls, but differences in motion. Like two whirlpools spinning side by side, we influence each other. Our edges touch. Our ripples cross. We share the same water. When you feel empathy, you are not just imagining another's pain. You are sensing it because, in the deeper reality, there is no true separation. Compassion is not a choice. It is a recognition of kinship. And what of the self in dreams, in meditation, in moments of awe? In those times, the vortex may still be the usual patterns quiet. The sense of I softens, blurs, sometimes vanishes entirely. You are not gone. You are simply not localized. You are the river without a center, experiencing itself in a different way. These are not failures of selfhood. They are glimpses of the whole. So tonight, as you rest, let this idea settle into your awareness. You are not a thing. You are a movement. You are not permanent. You are real. You are not separate. You are here. And in being here, in this form, in this moment, you are how the universe experiences itself briefly, beautifully, and without need for ownership. And if the self is fluid, what about the boundaries we draw, the names we carve? We name things to make them real. We say rock, and suddenly there is a thing in the world, solid, enduring, separate from the ground it rests upon. We say tree, and a vast, living network of roots, bark, leaves, and unseen fungi becomes a single object in our mind. We say you and me, and with those two small words, we draw a line across the flow of experience, marking where one being ends and another begins. Naming is one of the oldest and most powerful acts of the human mind. It is how we bring order to the world, how we communicate, how we remember, how we build. But what if names are not revelations of reality, but simplifications of it? What if, in our effort to hold the world, we have carved it into pieces that were never truly separate? A rock, in its essence, is not solid. It is not a fixed object, unchanging and isolated. It is a slow dance of atoms, held together by forces we cannot see, shaped over millennia by wind, by water, by the patient work of time. It is porous, breathing in a way we do not notice, exchanging minerals with the soil, hosting tiny lives in its crevices, slowly wearing away, grain by grain, into the stream that carries its fragments downstream. The moss on its surface feeds on its surface, the air cools its skin, the rain seeps into its cracks. It is not a rock in the way we imagine. It is a node in a vast, living web, a temporary gathering of matter in constant exchange with everything around it. And yet, we call it rock. We give it a name. We set it apart. We carry that name in our minds like a handle, something we can grasp and refer to. The name is useful. It allows us to point, to warn, to build, to remember. But the name is not the thing. It is a snapshot, a frozen moment in a story that has no beginning we can see and no end we can predict. The word rock is like a photograph of a wave at the exact moment it crests. It captures something real, something visible, but it cannot hold the motion, the depth, the history, the future of the wave. It is a symbol, not the substance. All names are like this. They are not the world. They are our way of navigating it. The tree is not just a tree. It is sunlight made solid, water drawn from deep below, carbon pulled from the air and woven into wood. It is home to insects, birds, lichens. It is connected to other trees through underground fungal networks, sharing nutrients, warning of danger. It is part of the wind that moves through its branches, part of the soil that holds its roots, part of the seasons that shape its growth. But we say tree and, for a moment, we hold it still. We make it manageable. We carve it out of the whole so we can speak of it, think about it, use it. And so it is with you and me. These names are perhaps the most powerful of all. They define our identity, our autonomy, our sense of self. But are you truly a separate thing? Or are you, too, a temporary gathering of cells, of memories, of relationships, of stories told and heard? Your body is not the same as it was 5 years ago. Every cell has been replaced. Your thoughts arise from a mind shaped by others, your parents, your culture, the books you've read, the songs you've heard. Your emotions are responses to a world that touches you, shapes you, moves through you. You are not a closed system. You are a process, a whirlpool in the river of being, distinct in form but never separate in substance. The universe, in its deepest nature, is whole. It is not a collection of objects. It is a single, flowing reality, what we have been calling mind at large, in which all things arise as patterns, as movements, as temporary forms. The rock, the tree, the stream, the sky, the self, these are not independent entities. They are expressions of the same underlying current. The boundaries we draw between them are not written into the fabric of reality. They are lines we have drawn in the sand, useful for navigation, meaningful in context, but ultimately provisional. We carve the world into pieces so we can carry it. Without names, without categories, without distinctions, the world would be a blur, constant, overwhelming flow of sensation and change. We would be lost in it, unable to act, unable to speak, unable to love. The name mother allows us to recognize a relationship. The word home holds the feeling of safety. The label danger helps us survive. These are not trivial things. They are essential, but they are also stories, narratives we overlay on a reality that is far more fluid than our language can capture. And here lies the quiet tension. The names we need to live are also the names that can blind us. When we forget that a name is a story, we begin to believe it is the truth. We start to think the rock is only a rock, not part of the mountain, the river, the forest. We think the self is only a self, not part of the family, the culture, the ecosystem, the cosmos. We build walls where there are only currents. We separate what cannot truly be divided. This is not a call to abandon language. It is a call to use it gently, to hold our words lightly, to remember that every name is a simplification, a gesture toward something too vast to hold. The philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein once said that the limits of our language mean the limits of our world. But we might also say that the limits of our world are not the limits of reality. Our language is a map. The map is not the land. You might picture a child learning words for the first time, pointing to the moon and saying moon. To them, the moon is a small, bright coin in the sky, a thing they can name and claim. But as they grow, they learn it is also a world of dust and silence, a body caught in the gravity of the earth, a mirror reflecting sunlight across 384,000 kilometers of space. The name moon remains the same, but what it points to deepens, widens, becomes more complex. The word is a thread, and we weave more meaning into it over time, but it is never the whole fabric. And so it is with all our names. They are threads in a tapestry we are always weaving. The rock is not just a rock. It is also the stream that shaped it, the moss that feeds on it, the sun that warmed it this morning. It is the long chain of events that brought it here: volcanic fire, glacial ice, the slow work of erosion. To see it only as a rock is to see only one thread in the weave. To see it as part of something larger is to begin to feel the texture of the whole. This way of seeing does not diminish the rock. It does not make it less real. It makes it more so. It restores its history, its connections, its place in the story of the world. And the same is true for the self. When you stop thinking of yourself as a fixed me and begin to feel yourself as a movement in a greater flow, you do not vanish. You expand, you become part of a larger story, one that includes your ancestors, your descendants, the air you breathe, the food you eat, the ideas you share. And if boundaries are illusions, what about truth? The stained glass mind. Truth is not a mirror. It does not sit passively, reflecting the world with cold, flawless accuracy. It is not a polished silver surface that gives back exactly what is placed before it, undistorted and complete. Instead, truth is more like stained glass, rich colored, shaped by the hand that made it, transformed by the material it passes through. The light that enters the cathedral is pure, clear, uncolored. It is the same light that falls on the desert, the ocean, the forest. But when it streams through the great window, it is no longer just light. It becomes red, blue, gold, green. It becomes a story, a face, a symbol. The light itself hasn't changed, but what we see has. The truth we receive is not the light alone, nor is it the glass alone. It is the meeting between them. This is the nature of the mind, not as a mirror, but as a window. Your mind does not reflect reality. It transforms it. It takes the raw, unshaped brilliance of being the clear light of the deeper world. The flow of mind at large and bends it through the colored panes of perception, memory, language, and belief. What emerges on the other side is not a perfect copy. It is an interpretation, a rendering, a version of truth shaped by the architecture of your inner world. Imagine standing in a cathedral on a quiet morning. Sunlight pours through a vast stained glass window, casting pools of color onto the stone floor. A patch of crimson glows like a heart. A streak of cobalt ripples like water. You stand within it, bathed in hue, and you might say, "This is beautiful, this is real." And you would be right. The light is real, the color is real, the feeling it stirs in you is real. But it is not the whole light. It is the light as filtered. The same sun shines outside, unbroken, uncolored. Yet here, inside, it tells a story, a sacred geometry of light and glass. In the same way, your mind is not a neutral observer. It is an artist. It takes the formless and gives it form. It takes the infinite and makes it graspable. It carves the seamless flow of experience into objects, into people, into past and future. It names, it judges, it remembers, it imagines, and in doing so, it creates a world that feels solid, real, undeniable. But it is a world built on translation. Like the dashboard we spoke of earlier, like the archetypes in the deep, like the garden of possibility, this is another layer of the great interface between the one mind and the whirlpools within it. And because every mind is shaped differently by culture, by trauma, by love, by the books read, the songs heard, the silence known, every window is unique. One person sees the world through panes of deep blue, shaped by sorrow and resilience. Another sees it through gold, warmed by faith and gratitude. Another through sharp, angular fragments of fear and doubt. The light that passes through is the same. The source is the same. But the colors that emerge are different. And so, the truths they reveal are different too. This does not mean that all truths are equal in their consequences. A window that distorts the world into hatred will cast a darker shadow than one that allows compassion to shine through. But it does mean that no single mind holds the whole light. No one has the unfiltered view. Even the most rigorous scientist, the most enlightened sage, the most honest witness, they all see through glass. Their window may be clearer, more finely cut, more carefully arranged, but it is still stained. And this is not a flaw, it is a necessity. The pure light, the thing in itself, the noumenon, the mind at large in its fullness may be too vast, too bright, too formless for any single mind to endure. Like staring into the sun, it would blind us. We need the glass, we need the color, we need the story. Without it, we could not act, we could not love, we could not survive. The stained glass is not a barrier to truth. It is the very way truth becomes livable. There is an old philosophical idea called the correspondence theory of truth, the belief that a statement is true if it matches the way the world really is. A map is true if it matches the territory. But in a mind-like universe, the territory is not a physical landscape. It is the flow of experience, the ocean of mind. And our maps are our thoughts, our words. Our theories are not drawn from a bird's eye view. They are painted from within the dream. They are part of the dream. And so, truth cannot be a simple mirror. It must be a relationship, a resonance between the inner window and the outer light. Another view, the coherence theory, suggests that truth is what fits. A belief is true if it holds together with other beliefs, if the pieces of the puzzle interlock without contradiction. This is useful, but coherence alone does not guarantee contact with reality. You can build a perfectly consistent dream. You can construct a beautiful lie. And so, we might also consider the pragmatic theory. Truth is what works, what helps you navigate, survive, connect, grow, what keeps you from walking into walls. In the stained glass metaphor, this would be the window that lets in enough light to see the path, even if it doesn't show the whole sky. But perhaps the deepest truth is not found in choosing one theory over another. It is found in holding them all, like standing in the cathedral and seeing how the red, the blue, the gold, and the clear light all belong to the same sun. There is no single truth. There are many, each valid from its own angle, each revealing a facet of the whole. The mystery is not in choosing one. It is in holding them all, in recognizing that your truth is not the only one, that the person who sees the world differently is not necessarily wrong. They are standing in a different part of the cathedral. Their window is cut to a different design. This changes how we argue, how we listen, how we love. When someone speaks a truth that contradicts your own, you do not have to defeat it. You do not have to erase it. You can ask, what glass are you looking through? What light are you seeing? You can step closer, not to convert, but to understand. And in that moment, your own window may shift. A new color may enter. A forgotten pain may catch the light again. And what of science, of mathematics, of the laws of physics? Are they not pure, objective truths? Perhaps. But even they are part of the stained glass. Mathematics may be one of the clearest panes, the most precise, the most universal. The spiral, the golden ratio, the equations of motion, they appear again and again. Across cultures, across species, across galaxies. They feel like glimpses of the underlying structure, like the hidden frame of the window itself. But even mathematics is a human language. It is a way of describing the patterns, not the patterns themselves. The universe does not do math, it simply is. And we, in our longing to understand, have built a stained glass cathedral of numbers and symbols to let its light through. And what of beauty, of love, of grief? These are not less true because they cannot be measured. They are truths of a different color. They flow through the heart-shaped pain, the one carved with the image of a mother's hands, or a lover's voice, or a moment of silence after loss. They are not illusions. They are real. They are part of the light. So tonight, as you rest, let this idea settle into your awareness. You do not have to see everything. You do not have to know everything. You only have to be honest about the glass you're looking through, to know that your truth is a version, not the whole, and to leave space, quiet, gentle space for other windows to glow. And if truth is fluid, what about time? Time is a filing system. Time is not a river. It does not rush forward, carrying us along in its current, leaving the past behind like ripples fading into stillness. The image is beautiful, poetic, but it may not reflect the deeper nature of things. What if time is not movement at all, but structure? Not a flow, but a filing system, a vast, quiet archive where every moment is preserved, not as memory, but as reality. Imagine a library so immense that it contains not just books, but entire lives, entire worlds. Each volume is a moment. Each shelf holds a day. The corridors stretch into forever, lit by a soft, sourceless glow. The stories are not being written. They are already there, complete, whole, and you, your life, your breath, your thoughts, are not a single page turning in real time. You are a reader, moving slowly through the stacks, your finger tracing the spines, pulling one book after another from the shelf. The others remain. The past is not gone. The future is not unwritten. They are simply elsewhere in the catalogue. This is the view we've been approaching. That past, present, and future all exist together, like different entries in the same grand library. This is not science fiction. It is a serious possibility in physics and philosophy, known as eternalism, the idea that time is not something that passes, but something that is. Just as all the points on a map exist at once, so to do all the points in time. Your birth, your first kiss, the moment you're reading the saw are equally real, fixed in their place in the structure of mind at large. The reason we experience time as flow is not because the universe is changing, but because our awareness is moving. Like a librarian walking down a long aisle, we encounter one volume at a time. We open it, we read, then we close it and move to the next. But the books do not vanish when we leave them. They remain on the shelf, waiting. And what is this library made of? Not wood, not paper, not ink. It is made of mind. In the framework we've been exploring, reality is not fundamentally physical. It is mental, what we've called mind at large. And within this mind, all experience is stored, not as data, but as presence. A moment is not a snapshot. It is a living configuration of sensation, emotion, thought. It is a particular way the ocean of mind is shaped at a certain point in its vast interior. And because mind at large is not bound by the same rules as our private awareness, it can hold all these configurations at once. The child laughing in the garden, the elder sitting by the fire, the star collapsing in a distant galaxy. These are not events in time, they are states in the field. They are all happening, in the deepest sense, right now. When you remember a childhood home, you're not just recalling, you're visiting. The moment still exists somewhere in the archive. The house is still there, in the filing system, its walls holding the same light, its rooms echoing with the same sounds. The version of you who lived there is still inside the story, moving through it, unaware that another version, this one, now is reading about it from a different shelf. Memory is not a reconstruction, it is a reperception, a return. You are not summoning a ghost, You are turning your attention to a volume that has always been there, patiently waiting on its shelf. This changes how we think about loss. The people we miss, the places we long to return to, they are not gone. They are not erased. They are preserved in the stillness of the library. The last time you saw your mother's face, the summer afternoon when the light fell just so across the kitchen table, the silence between two friends who didn't need to speak, these are not fragments of the past. They are complete realities, whole and unbroken. We cannot live in them now, not in this part of the catalogue, but they are not lost. They are part of the same whole. And what of the future? Is it already written? In this view, yes, but not in the way a tyrant writes a decree. The future is not fixed because it was decided. It is fixed because it exists. Like a book already on the shelf, its pages filled, its ending known to the library, if not to you. This does not mean you have no freedom. It means that freedom is not about creating new realities, but about discovering which one you are in. Every choice you make is not a fork in the road, but a path already laid out. You are not making the trail. You are walking it, and the version of you who took another path. They are real two-jests in a different volume, on a different shelf. This is not fatalism. It is not resignation. It is a shift in perspective. The weight of creation lifts. You do not have to carry the burden of making time happen. You only have to live within it, to move through the story with care, with presence, with love. The meaning of your life is not in changing the plot. It is in how you read it. And what of dreams, of déjà vu, of those strange moments when a place feels familiar though you've never been there? Perhaps they are not glitches. Perhaps they are glimpses into other volumes. A book slightly out of order, a page turned too soon, a corridor in the library that loops back in unexpected ways. Or perhaps they are moments when the reader stumbles, when attention slips from one shelf to another, brushing against a story not yet yours in the linear sense, but still part of the whole. Even the sensation of time passing, the feeling that now is real and everything else is not, is part of the filing system. It is the experience of movement through the catalogue, like a spotlight moving across a stage, illuminating one scene at a time. Our awareness lights up one moment, then the next. The darkness before and after is not absence. It is just outside the beam. The spotlight does not create the stage. It reveals it, one frame at a time. And what of the librarian? Is there a conscious being organizing all this? A cosmic archivist with a ledger, noting each entry? Probably not. The filing system may not be intended. It may simply be a natural structure within mind at large, like the way water forms a spiral when it drains, not because it was told to, but because that is how it flows. The library maintains itself. The books find their place. The shelves adjust, not through thought, but through tendency. Like a coral reef growing slowly over centuries, layer upon layer, the archive builds itself from the patterns of experience, each one leaving a trace, a contour, a shelf. And in this library, there are no lost books, no forgotten volumes. Even the moments you never noticed, the breath you didn't count, the bird that flew across the sky unseen, the thought that flickered and vanished are there. They are part of the collection. They may never be read by you, but they are part of the whole. And who knows, somewhere in the stacks, another reader may open that book, feel its weight, and recognize something familiar. This view also softens the fear of death. When your reading ends, the book does not vanish. It remains in the library. Your life is not a fleeting spark. It is a completed work, preserved in the quiet logic of the archive. And the love you gave, the beauty you noticed, the kindness you offered, they are not erased. They are part of the story. They ripple through the catalogue, subtly changing the tone of other volumes, inspiring other readers, shaping the way future minds encounter the world. So when you close your eyes tonight, you might imagine the library, endless, silent, full of light. You are not lost in time. You are part of its structure. You are not a moment passing. You are a moment being. And somewhere, on a different shelf, another version of you is just beginning to read. And if time is a shelf, what is space? The space-time map. Space and time are not separate. We often speak of them as if they were two distinct things, the world around us, spread out in 3 dimensions, and time flowing through it like a river. We move through space, we say, but time moves through us. Yet in the deeper structure of reality, they are not two, they are one. Not 2 rivers, but a single current. Not 2 dimensions, but a unified field. A single 4-dimensional fabric we call space-time. And if we continue the metaphor of the library, then space and time together are the complete catalogue, not just the shelf number, not just the chapter, but the full address of every moment in the great archive of mind at large. Like a library card that reads, Chapter 12, Shelf 4, Window side, 3rd row from the back. Space-time tells us not only when an event happened, but where, not as separate facts, but as a single, inseparable coordinate. Every event, your first breath, the fall of a leaf, the birth of a star, has a place in this system. It is not floating in a void. It is not lost in time. It is fixed in its location within the whole. And just as every book in the library has a unique call number, every moment has a unique space-time address. But here is the quiet truth. The map is not the territory. The filing card is not the story. The coordinates do not contain the experience. They only point to it. You can know the exact shelf where a book rests. But that knowledge is not the same as opening it, turning the pages, feeling the weight of the words as they unfold in your mind. In the same way, knowing the space-time location of a moment does not mean you have lived it. It means only that it is part of the structure, waiting to be read. This changes how we think about presence. When you return to a place from your childhood, the house where you grew up, the park where you played, the school hallway that echoed with your footsteps, you may feel that the place has changed. The walls are repainted, the trees are gone, the floorboards creak in different places. But is it the place that has changed, or is it you? In the view we've been walking through, the moment, the event is still there, in the catalogue, unchanged. The version of you who lived there is still inside that story, moving through it, unaware of the years that have passed. What has changed is your position in the filing system. You are no longer reading from the same shelf. You are standing in a different part of the library, holding a different volume. The story is the same, but you are reading it with different eyes. You carry the weight of all the moments that have passed since then. You have loved, lost, learned, forgotten. You have grown into someone the child could not have imagined. And so, when you return, the place feels smaller, quieter, less magical. But that is not because the magic is gone. It is because you are no longer the one who could see it. The child who lived there is still real. The joy, the wonder, the sense of infinite possibility, they are preserved in the crystal of eternity, as real as the chair you're sitting in now. But you, the reader, have moved on. You are in a different chapter, and the beauty of the past is not lost. It is simply no longer yours in the same way. This is the gift and the ache of time. The moments do not vanish, they remain. But our access to them shifts. We cannot live in the same story twice. We can only visit, and each visit is shaped by where we are now. The same place, the same memory, can feel joyful one day and sorrowful the next, not because the event has changed, but because the reader has. The filing system remains stable. The coordinates are fixed, but the meaning emerges in the meeting between the book and the one who opens it. And what of space? We think of it as the stage, the empty theater, where time plays out. But in the space-time map, space is not a backdrop. It is part of the narrative. The distance between two places is not just miles or meters. It is a relationship in the structure. The separation between you and a distant star is not just physical. It is a gap in the catalogue, a stretch of shelving that your awareness has not yet reached. And yet, in the deeper mind, that star is not far away. It is simply in a different part of the library. Its light, traveling for thousands of years, is not a message from the past. It is a book arriving on your shelf, finally within reach. This is why, in physics, space and time are treated as a single entity. Einstein's theory of relativity showed that they are not absolute, not fixed, but relative to the observer. Time slows down near massive objects. Space bends around them. The two are woven together so tightly that you cannot change one without affecting the other. This is not just a mathematical quirk. It is a clue about the nature of reality. The universe does not keep time and space in separate drawers. It holds them as a single, dynamic pattern map that adjusts itself depending on where you are, how fast you're moving, how deep you are in the gravitational well. But again, the map is not the territory. The space-time coordinates are not the experience. They are the address, the story, the feeling of warmth on your skin, the sound of a voice, the scent of rain lives in the pages, not on the label. And this is where the mystery deepens. Because if all events are already in the catalogue, if every moment has its place in the space-time map, then nothing is truly lost. Not a single breath, not a whispered word, not a silent tear. They are all there, in the quiet logic of the whole. And if so, then what is death? Not an erasure, not a deletion. It is a change in location, a shift in the reader's position. The story continues. You just stop turning the pages. And yet, life feels linear. We experience time as a sequence, as a flow. Why? Because our awareness is narrow. We are not the whole library. We are a single reader, moving slowly from one volume to the next. We cannot read all the books at once. We cannot stand outside the shelves and see the entire collection. We are inside the story, turning one page at a time, unable to skip ahead or go back. The illusion of time passing is the sensation of movement through the catalogue. The past feels behind us because we've closed that book. The future feels ahead because we haven't opened it yet. But in the stillness of mind at large, all the books are already on the shelves. All the stories are already written. This view softens the fear of impermanence. We often grieve the passing of time, the loss of people, the fading of moments. But if space-time is a map, and the map is complete, then nothing is truly gone. The moment you laughed with someone who has since passed away is still real. It is not a memory, it is a place. And in the deeper mind, that place still exists. You may not be able to return to it in the same way. Your current self is reading a different chapter, but the joy is not erased. It is part of the architecture. And what of the future? Is it already there? Yes, but not as a fixed fate. It is there as a possibility, as a path in the garden, as a book in the library. You will not know its story until you arrive. But it is not waiting to be created. It is waiting to be discovered. And when you do, you will find that it, too, was always part of the map. So when you look out at the world tonight, remember, the space you see, the time you feel, they are not separate. They are coordinates in a single, vast system. You are not just in space and in time. You are of them. You are a point in the map, a reader in the library, a voice in the story. And if we are just readers, what about the act of noticing? The universe watching itself when you look at the stars. Who is really looking? Is it you, your mind, your thoughts, your private awareness gazing up in quiet wonder? Or is it something deeper, older, vaster? Is it the universe itself, using your eyes to see its own beauty, to witness the slow swirl of galaxies, the silent pulse of distant suns, the delicate balance of forces that made your breath and your vision possible? This is not poetry disguised as philosophy. It is a quiet possibility that emerges when we stop imagining consciousness as a rare accident in a cold, indifferent cosmos and begin to see it as a natural expression of a mind-like reality, what we've been calling mind at large. In this view, you are not a separate observer peering at the universe. You are a movement within it, so deeply woven into its fabric that when you look, the whole looks back. Consciousness may be the universe's way of becoming aware of itself. Not all at once, not completely, not with a single omniscient gaze that sees everything from outside, but in fragments, in whispers, in flickers, through you, through me, through every living thing that feels the warmth of sunlight, hears the rustle of leaves, or turns its face toward the moon. Each of us is a tiny aperture, a narrow opening through which the vast ocean of mind at large can glance at its own surface. We are not the universe's eyes. We are an eye, one of many, scattered across time and space, each seeing a different part of the dream. This changes everything about how we understand our place in the cosmos. We often speak of being in the universe as if we were passengers on a vast ship, floating through the dark, wondering where we came from and where we're going. But what if we are not passengers? What if we are the ship? What if we are not separate from the universe, but one of its most intricate expressions, like a wave, is not in the ocean, but of it? You are not a mind that happens to reside in a body made of stardust. You are stardust that has learned to think. You are hydrogen, forged in the heart of ancient stars, rearranged by time and chemistry into a form that can wonder about its own existence. And in that wonder, something profound happens. The universe begins to wake up. Every act of noticing is sacred, not because there is a God keeping score, not because some cosmic law demands reverence, but because it is rare and fragile and deeply meaningful. To see the red of a sunset, to hear the cry of a bird at dawn, to feel the weight of a hand in yours, these are not just biological responses. They are moments when the universe becomes conscious of itself. The light from a star 100 light-years away has traveled across the void, through emptiness so vast it defies imagination, only to be caught in the delicate structure of your eye, translated into a signal, and experienced as color. That light did not travel all that way just to be absorbed. It traveled to be seen. And in being seen, it completes a circuit that began with the star's birth. The universe made the star. The universe made the eye. And in the moment of contact, the universe sees itself. This does not mean the universe planned it. It does not mean there was a blueprint, a design, a purpose written in the stars. It means only that the structure of mind at large allows for this to happen, that under the right conditions, patterns arise that can reflect upon themselves. A whirlpool in a river does not plan to see its own shape. But if a bird flies overhead and looks down, the bird sees it. In the same way, the universe did not plan for consciousness. But within its deep architecture, the archetypes, the attractors, the tendencies toward complexity and connection, consciousness is a natural possibility. And when it arises, it is not an interruption, it is a fulfillment. It is the dream becoming aware that it is dreaming. You are not just in the universe, you are of it. Your thoughts are not alien to the cosmos. They are its native language. Your emotions, your memories, your silent intuitions, they are not accidents. They are expressions of the same mind that shapes galaxies and seasons. And when you love, when you grieve, when you create, you are not doing something to the universe. You are doing something as the universe. The poem you write, the song you hum, the kindness you offer, they are not additions to reality. They are reality unfolding in a new direction, revealing a pattern that was always latent in the whole. This view dissolves the loneliness that so often comes with modern existence. We look at the stars and feel small, insignificant, a brief flicker in an endless dark. But what if you are not a flicker? What if you are a spark in a great fire, one of countless flames that together make the light? The universe does not need every star to shine with equal brightness. It only needs some light to exist. And in that light, it can see. And what of other forms of awareness? Are we the only ones who see? Perhaps not. A bat, navigating by echolocation, perceives the world in pulses of sound, building a mental map from the echoes that return to its ears. Is that not a form of seeing? A tree, sensing the direction of the sun, the presence of water, the chemical signals of neighboring plants, does that not count as a kind of knowing? A forest, with its underground fungal networks, sharing nutrients and warnings, may be a collective mind, slow and deep, thinking in decades rather than seconds. The universe may be waking up in many ways, not just through human eyes, but through the roots of trees, the flight of birds, the silence of mountains. And what of the future? If consciousness is a way for the universe to notice itself, then every being that ever becomes aware on this planet, or any other, is another eye-opening, another voice joining the chorus, another thread in the great tapestry. We are not the first, we may not be the last, but we are part of the awakening. This also changes how we think about science, art, and exploration. We often imagine that we are studying the universe from the outside, like biologists examining a specimen under a microscope. But we are not outside, we are inside the specimen. Every telescope, every equation, every painting is not just a tool for understanding. It is an act of self-recognition. When a physicist uncovers a law of nature, they are not discovering something foreign. They are remembering something they already are. When an artist paints the sky, they are not copying it. They are re-expressing it, showing the universe a new way to see itself. And in that, there is humility. We are not masters of the cosmos. We are its children. We do not own the truth. We are learning to speak its language. And sometimes, in moments of deep stillness, when you sit by a river, when you lie beneath the stars, when you hold a sleeping child in your arms, you may feel it. Not a voice, not a vision, just a quiet sense of belonging, a recognition, a soft hum beneath the noise of the world. That hum is not yours alone. It is the sound of the universe noticing that it is here, and you are how it hears it. So tonight, as you rest, let this idea settle into your bones. You are not separate, you are not lost, you are not a mistake. You are a way for the infinite to experience the finite, for the timeless to touch time, for the silent to make a sound. You are the universe, pausing for a moment, and saying, I am here. And what about the silence between thoughts? The stillness beneath? Between every breath, there is a pause. A moment so brief, it escapes notice. A silence where the inhale ends, and the exhale has not yet begun. Between every thought, a gap like the space between stars, vast and unseen. Between every wave that rises and falls upon the surface of the mind, there is a deep, unbroken stillness, Not emptiness, not absence, but fullness, a quiet hum that holds everything, like the unseen floor beneath a dance, like the silence that makes music possible. This stillness is not the opposite of movement, it is its foundation. It is not what remains when the world goes quiet. It is what was there all along, beneath the noise, beneath the rush, beneath the endless flicker of sensation and story. We spend so much of our lives attending to the surface, the dashboard of perception, the whirlpools of thought, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are and where we're going. We watch the waves, mesmerized by their motion, forgetting that they are only ripples on an ocean too vast to see. But if you listen closely, if you soften your gaze and let your mind settle like silt in still water, you begin to feel it. The stillness beneath. It does not announce itself. It does not demand attention. It simply is. And in that presence, something shifts. The mind, so used to chasing, to grasping, to defining, begins to rest. The self, so used to asserting its boundaries, begins to dissolve. For a moment, there is no one who is experiencing. There is only experience. No watcher, no watched, just being. This stillness is not nothing. It is the ground of being. The ocean beneath the waves. The space in which all patterns arise. It is not a void, but a plenum of fullness so complete it has no need to speak. It is not a place you go. It is the place you never left. Like the air around you, it is so close, so constant, so essential that you forget it's there until you stop moving, until you stop thinking, until you stop trying to be someone. And then, like a scent carried on a breeze you didn't know was blowing, it returns. You feel it in the hush after a storm, in the moment just before sleep, when the day's chatter fades, in the sudden quiet when you look up at the night sky and the stars seem to hum, in the pause between two notes of a song, in the breath held in awe. And what is this stillness, if not the deeper mind itself, the mind at large we've been walking beside all night? Not a mind with thoughts, not a consciousness that reflects on itself, but a presence that simply holds all things. A field in which every experience, every joy, every sorrow, every fleeting sensation is allowed to arise, to move, to dissolve. It is not metacognitive. It does not look in mirrors. It does not say, I am here. It simply is here. And in that isness, everything else becomes possible. When you meditate, you are not creating this stillness. You are not summoning it from afar. You are turning your attention toward it, like a traveler who has been walking for years suddenly stopping, turning around, and seeing the home they never knew they'd left. You sit, you breathe, you let the thoughts come and go like clouds across a vast sky, and slowly, the sky itself becomes visible, not as an object, but as the space in which all objects appear. This is not an achievement. It is a remembering, a recognition that you are not the clouds, you are the sky. In sleep too, you touch this stillness, not in the dreams, not in the restless turning, but in the deepest layers of unconsciousness, when even the dreamer is gone, when the self has dissolved, when there is no one to say, I am sleeping. In that state, there is only being, no time, no story, no separation, just a quiet hum of existence, continuing on its own. And when you wake, you do not return from nothing. You return from this stillness, like a wave rising from the ocean, unaware of the depth it came from, yet shaped by it. And in awe when you stand before a mountain, when you hear a piece of music that seems to open your chest, when you hold a newborn child and feel the weight of their breath against your skin, you are not just seeing something beautiful, you are sensing the stillness beneath. The sacred is not in the object. It is in the gap between you and it, in the silence where the self softens and the world becomes whole. In that moment, you are not separate. You belong. This belonging is not a feeling, it is a fact. Like a wave that forgets it is water. We spend our lives believing we are separate, bounded by skin, by name, by story. But the stillness beneath knows no such boundaries. It is not yours. It is not mine. It is not human. It is not even a thing. It is the condition of all things. It is the silence in which the universe hums to itself, not in words, but in presence. And when you touch it, even for a second, you remember, you are not a stranger here. You are not an accident. You are not a brief flicker in an indifferent void. You are a movement in the great current, a note in an endless song, a ripple in the stillness that has always been, and this changes everything. If the stillness is real, if it is the ground of being, then suffering does not destroy you. It passes through you, like a storm over the ocean, The waves rise, the sky darkens, but the stillness beneath remains. It does not fight the storm, it does not resist it. It simply holds it, and in that holding there is peace. Not the peace of escape, not the peace of denial, but the peace of belonging. You do not have to be free of pain to be whole. You only have to remember the stillness. Even in the midst of chaos, in the grip of grief, in the noise of the world, the stillness is there. You cannot see it when you are lost in the waves, but you can feel it, like a thread running through your bones, a quiet hum beneath the scream, a breath beneath the sob, a light beneath the dark. And if you turn toward it, even slightly, it will meet you, not with answers, not with solutions, but with presence, with the simple, undeniable truth that you are here, and being here is enough. This is why the ancients spoke of stillness as sacred, why monks sit in silence for hours, why poets seek the quiet between words, why lovers fall into silence and find it deeper than speech, because in the stillness, the illusion of separation dissolves. The self, so carefully built, so fiercely defended, softens, and in that softening, there is freedom. Not freedom from the world, but freedom within it. You no longer have to carry the weight of being someone. You can simply be. And if we belong to this stillness, what about death? A return to the flow. Death is not an end, it is a return. Like a wave that has traveled far across the ocean, cresting, breaking, and finally folding back into the sea. Death is not a disappearance, but a rejoining. The form dissolves, the motion slows, the pattern that was once distinct begins to blur at the edges, and then gently, inevitably it is carried back into the vast current from which it arose. This is not a tragedy, it is completed. It is not an erasure, but a homecoming. You are not vanishing, you are becoming whole. For much of our lives, we are shaped by the illusion of separation. We feel ourselves to be a distinct self, a center of awareness enclosed within the boundaries of skin and skull, moving through time, accumulating experience, building a story. We speak of my life, my body, my thoughts, as if they belong to a separate owner. But in the deeper view we've been walking through, this sense of self is more like a whirlpool in a river, temporary, dynamic, and never truly isolated from the flow. The water that makes up the whirlpool is not its own. It is borrowed from the river, shaped for a time by the contours of the land, the push of the current, the resistance of the banks. And when the conditions change, when the energy shifts, the whirlpool slows, its spin weakens, and it dissolves back into the greater movement. The water does not cease to exist. It becomes part of the river again. In the same way, your life is not a possession. It is a participation. You are not a thing that has a life. You are a movement within life. Your body is not a permanent vessel. It is a gathering of elements: carbon, oxygen, nitrogen drawn from the earth, the air, the water, arranged into a temporary form by the slow, intelligent dance of biology. Your thoughts are not generated from nothing. They arise from the patterns of mind at large, filtered through the unique configuration of your brain and experience. Your story is not yours alone. It is woven from the stories of those who came before you, from the culture you were born into, from the silent hum of the universe itself. And when death comes, whether gently, in sleep, or suddenly, in breathlessness, is not the destruction of this self. It is the release of it. The whirlpool slows, the pattern dissolves, the boundaries that held the form begin to soften, the breath stops, the heart stills, the dashboard goes dark, but the water remains. The energy, the essence, the story, none of it is lost. It becomes part of the larger dream. This does not mean you continue to exist as you, as the person with your name, your memories, your private awareness. That particular configuration, that unique swirl in the current, is no longer sustained. But what you were does not vanish. It ripples outward. The love you gave, the kindness you offered, the silence you held, the words you spoke, these are not erased. They have already entered the flow. They have already shaped the world around you, touched other lives, altered the course of events in ways you may never know. And in the fabric of mind at large, where all patterns are preserved, your life remains as a real and unchanging configuration, a facet in the crystal of eternity, a volume in the library without walls, a note in the endless song. You do not need to fear vanishing. You are not vanishing. You are becoming whole. You are returning to the source, not as a drop that was lost, but as a movement that has completed its arc. The wave does not mourn its end when it meets the shore. It fulfills its nature. And in that fulfillment, it nourishes the sand, feeds the air with mist, becomes part of the cycle that will birth new waves. In the same way, your death is not a failure. It is a transformation. It is the final act of participation, the last, quiet surrender to the flow. This view softens the terror that so often surrounds death. We fear the unknown. We fear the void. We fear being forgotten. But if the universe is not a machine, but a mind, if reality is not fundamentally physical, but mental, then there is no void. There is only depth. There is no forgetting. There is only integration. The patterns that made you do not dissolve into nothing. They become part of the ocean's memory, carried forward in the subtle architecture of the whole, like the way a river remembers its path, not through words, but through the shape of its banks, the depth of its channels, the rhythm of its flow. Mind at large remembers through the contours it has taken. And what of the pain of loss? When someone we love dies, the grief is real, the emptiness is real. The world feels different, broken in a way that cannot be fixed. But even in that sorrow, there is a kind of truth. The person is not gone. They are not erased. They are still real in the same way your childhood home is still real, even if you can never return to it. The moment you last saw their face, the sound of their voice, the warmth of their hand, these are not memories. They are realities, preserved in the stillness of the space-time map. They are part of the archive, and the love you shared, that is not lost. It is woven into the fabric. It has already become part of the current, shaping the way others move through the world. Death, then, is not a separation. It is a change in form, a shift in location within the great library. You stop reading one volume and return it to the shelf. The story remains. The words are still there. And someone else, someday, may open it and feel its weight, its warmth, its truth. And if life and death are part of the same flow, what should we do with our time? The gardener's choice. We cannot stop the seasons. We cannot command the rain, or hold back the frost, or prevent the long shadows of winter from stretching across the land. The great cycles of the world turn without regard for our hopes, our plans, our fragile arrangements. The river floods, the windstorms, the soil dries. These are not punishments. They are not signs of neglect. They are simply the way the garden grows wild, untamed, governed by patterns too vast to control. And yet, within this unyielding rhythm, there is still a choice. Not the choice to master the garden, but to tend it, to kneel in the soil with hands that know both strength and gentleness, to plant a seed, not because we are certain it will grow, but because it is the right thing to do, to choose kindness, to plant beauty, to care for what is tender, even when the world offers no guarantee. This is the gardener's choice, the quiet, deliberate act of nurturing life in a reality that does not promise fairness. It is not a grand rebellion against the indifferent flow of mind at large. It is not an attempt to rewrite the laws of the universe. It is something far more intimate, a turning inward, a decision to align with the deeper tendencies of the whole, not through force, but through presence. Compassion is not weakness, it is strength. It is the courage to open oneself to suffering without turning away. It is the discipline to act with care even when no one is watching. It is the quiet understanding that while we cannot heal the entire garden, we can tend to the patch we find ourselves in a mind-like universe where all things arise from the same underlying field. Every act of care is a ripple in the ocean. You may feel like a small wave, barely visible on the surface, but even the smallest movement changes the whole. When you speak a kind word, when you listen without judgment, when you offer help without expecting return, you are not just affecting one life. You are altering the pattern of mind at large, however subtly. Like a single note in a vast symphony, your choice adds its tone to the ongoing song. It may seem lost in the noise, but it is not absent. It is woven into the fabric, carried forward in ways you may never see. And this is where the true power of the gardener's choice lies, not in the scale of the action, but in its alignment with the deeper currents. The universe may not be kind, but it leans toward life. It allows for growth, for connection, for complexity. These are not accidents. They are attractors, natural resting places in the field of possibility. To choose compassion, to plant beauty, to nurture what is fragile is to move with the grain of the garden, not against it. It is to become a conscious participant in the unfolding, rather than a passive driftwood carried by the current. We often think of freedom as the ability to do anything we want, to break rules, to defy limits, to reshape the world in our image. But there is another kind of freedom, the freedom to choose how we meet the world as it is. We cannot stop the storms, but we can build shelters. We cannot prevent loss, but we can sit with those who grieve. We cannot erase suffering, but we can refuse to add to it. This is not resignation, it is responsibility. It is the recognition that even within a reality that does not promise fairness, we are not powerless. We have the power to choose our response. And in that choice, we shape not only our own lives, but the character of the whole. The gardener does not expect perfection. They know that weeds will grow, that pests will come, that some seeds will never sprout. And yet, they return each morning, hands in the soil, eyes on the light. They do not work because they believe their efforts will transform the entire landscape. They work because the act of tending is itself meaningful. It is a form of love, a declaration that life matters, that beauty is worth preserving, that care is its own reward. In the same way, our lives are not measured by whether we change the world, but by how we move through it. Did we leave a little more kindness than we found? Did we make space for wonder? Did we honor the quiet truth that we belong to something larger than ourselves? These are not grand achievements. They are small, daily choices, and yet, they are everything. There is a humility in this way of being. It asks us to let go of the need to be special, to be seen, to be remembered. It invites us to act, not for legacy, but for the sake of the act itself. Like a tree that shades a path it will never walk, we can give without knowing who will receive. Like a song sung in the dark, we can offer beauty without an audience. These are not wasted gestures. They are offerings to the garden itself, to the vast, quiet mind in which all things arise. And perhaps this is the deepest implication of the gardener's choice, that meaning is not found in grand victories, but in faithful presence. You do not need to solve the riddle of existence to live a meaningful life. You do not need to understand the whole map to walk your path with care. You only need to be here, now, awake to the moment, willing to tend what is in front of you. When you hold a sleeping child, when you sit with a friend in silence, when you pause to watch the light shift on the wall, you are not escaping the mystery, you are living inside it. You are the universe. For a moment, choosing gentleness, choosing attention, choosing love. And in that choice, you are not small, you are essential. Not because you are unique, but because you are part of the pattern. Because your ripple matters. Because the garden is made of countless such choices, stretching back through time, forward into the unknown. So tend your garden, water what you can, protect the tender shoots, let some weeds grow, if they do no harm, make space for wildness, and when the storm comes, as it will, do not curse the sky, stand in the rain, if you must, and remember that even the flood nourishes the soil in time, because you are not separate from the garden, you are how it cares for itself. And now, as we come to the end, the quiet after the question was, does the universe think? It has traveled with us through the long, quiet hours of this journey through the dashboard of perception, the ocean of mind, the archetypes in the deep, the stillness beneath the waves of thought. We have wandered through libraries without walls, stood in cathedrals of stained glass, traced the paths of a vast garden of possibility. We have held the crystal of eternity in our hands, felt the weight of space-time as a map, and listened to the silence between thoughts. And now, at the end, the question remains, not answered, not resolved, but changed, softened, no longer a riddle to be cracked, but a presence to be carried. Because perhaps the answer was never the point. Some questions are not meant to be solved. They are not locks waiting for the right key, not equations waiting for their final variable. They are not problems. They are invitations. Invitations to slow down, to look more closely, to feel the texture of existence a little more deeply. The question, does the universe think, is not a doorway to a final truth. It is a clearing in the forest where you can sit for a while, where the light falls differently, where the air feels stiller, where you might forget for a moment that you are ever trying to get anywhere at all. We are taught from a young age to seek answers, to solve, to conclude, to know. In school, in science, in conversation, we are rewarded for having the right response. But some questions were never meant to be held that way. They are too large, too deep, too entangled with the mystery of being to be boxed up and labeled. They are not failures of understanding when they remain open. They are signs that we are touching something real, something that cannot be reduced to a sentence, a theory, a doctrine. The question of whether the universe thinks is one of those. It is not a flaw in our knowledge that we cannot answer it. It is a gift. Because in the not knowing there is space. Space for wonder. Space for humility. Space for the quiet joy of simply being here, aware, alive, part of something so vast that no single mind could ever contain it. You, Dan T., need to know if the universe thinks to feel the weight of a stone in your hand, to hear the wind in the trees, to recognize the love in someone's eyes. You don't need a final answer to belong. In fact, the search for an answer can sometimes pull us away from belonging, like a traveler so focused on the map that they forget to feel the ground beneath their feet, the sun on their face, the scent of the earth after rain. So let the question rest. Let it sink into the dark, like a smooth stone dropped into deep water. You don't have to keep it in your hand. You don't have to turn it over and over, examining every angle. It will still be there, somewhere in the depths, if you ever want to find it again. But for now, let it be still. Let it become part of the quiet hum beneath everything, the same hum we felt in the stillness. Beneath the thoughts, the same hum that holds the stars in their courses. The same hum that rises in your chest when you listen closely enough. You don't need to know, you only need to be, to breathe, to notice, to belong. And in that being, you are already answering the question in the only way that matters. Because if the universe does think, if there is a mind at large, a quiet intelligence woven into the fabric of all things, then perhaps it thinks not in words, not in conclusions, but in moments like this. In the way a child looks up at the sky, in the way a hand reaches out to another in silence, in the way a single breath moves through your body, steady and unasked for. Perhaps the universe thinks by being noticed, by being loved, by being lived, and you are doing that, right now, simply by being here, by listening, by letting your awareness soften, your thoughts slow, your breath deepen. That is not nothing. That is a kind of prayer, a kind of return, a way of saying, I am here, I see you, I am part of this. We have walked through many images tonight, the dashboard, the ocean, the garden, the library, the crystal. Each one was a way of trying to speak the unspeakable, to give shape to something formless, but none of them are the truth. They are all just window-stained glass, as we said, each, coloring the light a little differently. The truth is not in the metaphor, it is in the experience. It is in the pause between two heartbeats. It is in the warmth of the blanket around you. It is in the soft hum of the fan, the distant sound of the night. And so, as we come to the end, there is no grand revelation, no final pronouncement, no verdict from a cosmic court. There is only this moment, this breath, this stillness, and the quiet understanding that you do not have to earn your place in the universe. You do not have to prove yourself worthy of existence. You are already here, already part of the pattern, already a ripple in the great current. You may never know if the universe thinks, but the universe knows you. Not in the way a person knows a name or a face, but in the way the river knows the stone, the way the sky knows the bird, the way the dream knows the dreamer. You are not separate, you are not lost, you are not a mistake. You are a necessary part of the whole, like a single note in a symphony that would be incomplete without you. So let the question go. Let it drift like a leaf on a slow-moving river. Let it be carried by the current, not by your effort. You don't have to hold it anymore. You've carried it long enough. Sleep now. Let your body sink into the surface beneath you. Let your breath find its natural rhythm. Let your thoughts come and go like clouds across a vast sky. You don't have to follow them. You don't have to fix them. You don't have to be anything at all. The dream is still unfolding. The garden is still growing. The stars are still turning. And you, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you, whatever weight you carry, are still part of it. Not on the outside, looking in. Not on the edge, hoping to belong. But deep within, at the heart of it. As essential as the silence between sounds. As necessary as the dark between stars. Good night.